Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, everybody, and welcome on in. Welcome to Carla. Happy to see you. Guys, I'm sorry we didn't get to do a stream last night. As many of you guys know, I've recently started working at a law office as a paralegal, and so I've had to consolidate my lesson schedule, and last night was one of my big nights to get a bunch of lessons in after I got home from the law firm. So, but it's okay because we are going to be catching on up. So we are going to pick up where we left off previously on this live stream, which is just the end of the day for day 22, which is what is it? It's day 1 of Jud Welcher on the stand. Wait, I can't remember. Day 2, day 3. How many days was he on the stand? Anyway, it's Mr. Alessi on his first day of cross, and then we'll get in, and then we'll jump into day 23, which is from yesterday when the Commonwealth. So they finish with we have more cross with Jud Welcher, and then and of course redirect what have you. And then the interview clip and the Commonwealth will rest. So basically, this is going to be finishing up with Jud Welcher and the Commonwealth resting. And then tomorrow, we will watch today's day in trial, which, as many of you guys, or all of you guys probably are well aware, the defense begins their case in chief. So there's plenty of interesting stuff to talk about. Welcome on in Mary as well. So there he is on the stand, as you guys can see there. And also, while I was getting ready and taking care of Frodo and stuff like that, I had a little bit of Law and Lumber playing in the background, and Runkle joined. And I just wanted to show you guys this picture because, like, y'all know how much I love Runkle, but this is just so cute. So here he is. He was in his hammock. This was him from earlier. He was laying in the hammock, but I love how he has the little blanket. He's just the freaking best. I freaking love Runkle so much. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, that's just so adorable. I have to take a picture. The blanket was like a nice touch. And then of course he had the dogs coming over and whatnot as well. Okay. So we also have a couple new court filings. What we'll do is we'll cover those when we transition from day 22 into day 23. So, but for now, let's go ahead and get started with, where is it? Okay. So this is going to be exactly where we left off last time. Cozy Runkle absolutely is. Cozy Runkle is right. And so look at that great pause game, though. Look at his face. Very good. Very good. All right.
Is there any indication in any medical record, autopsy report of the deceased of any fracture of any bone in the body?
That was not your original question, but to answer your question, no.
Oh, I'm already pissed off. That was not your original question. Who? Oh my God. Oh my God. Who cares? He doesn't, dude. Welcome on in, Bunny. I know this guy's right. Ugh. Luckily,
except for the skull.
With him.
Except for the skull.
Correct.
The skull. Duh. Oh my God.
Do you understand whether the absence of any fractures other than the skull of Mr. O'Keefe was of significance to the medical examiner, Dr. Scorty Bello, in the conclusion she reached in the autopsy report that you read?
System.
Did you read the conclusions of Dr. Scorty Bello in the autopsy?
I believe so.
Are you aware of whether Dr. Scorty Bello has analyzed whether the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe are inconsistent or consistent with a motor vehicle impact? Are you aware of any analysis to that effect?
So I'm going to see you on this one. Hear Judge Bev sighing. Oh God. Okay. Fan. Do-do-do. Oh my God, is this a really long one? I think this is a pretty long one. All right.
Dr. Welcher, I would like to talk now about your paint exercise. You did not present, as you have stated, a force calculation with regard to the arm. You did a paint exercise. And what I want to do is to reference, and if we need to bring it up, sir, to refresh you, slides 103 to 120 of your PowerPoint presentation in this trial. I'll just call it the blue paint exercise. Is that descriptive enough for you to know what I'm talking about?
No, it's not an exercise, it's a test.
Okay, you want to call it a blue
Right.
paint test?
Sure.
Okay, let's call it blue paint test. I just want to try to expedite things and use parlance that we can agree on.
Okay.
So your blue paint,
The okey doke is just so awful. And so yeah, I need some Z saying Alessi did better with him yesterday, but Welcher still got him frustrated. You know, I have some thoughts as to what the strategy was here for the Commonwealth calling him, like why they chose him specifically, potentially, right? We're gonna talk about that. But also as to the defense's strategy with their first witness from today, beginning their case in chief. It's really not common, right, for a case in chief of anybody's to begin with an expert, right? That's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's a really bold choice, I would say, in a good way. You know, like they came out with an expert for witness number one, but as you guys I'm sure know, but I think that as we jump into finishing this up with him on day 22 and then day 23, that knowing what we know now, we can see that potentially this dude still being super frustrating and potentially maybe frustrating Mr. Alessi, although we've like never seen him frustrated before and all that, right? And not being like maybe the most successful cross-examination that Mr. Alessi's ever had. That I think the defense kind of accepted that was going to be the case and took a different approach and figured that the best way they could use this dude was not necessarily for his testimony on cross. So, but for other purposes, which we'll talk about. So
test involved painting the right rear taillight blue, correct?
Correct.
Positioning the test subject behind the taillight, correct?
Correct.
With the arm held out, correct?
Correct.
And at a right angle, correct?
Correct.
And then the vehicle, the Lexus SUV, is backed into the test subject, correct?
So I ran 3 different tests.
I know. Well, let's just do each one at a time, okay?
Okay, so you start with the last one.
I'll start with whatever one you want.
Okay.
How about if we start with the one at 1 mile per hour?
None of them are at 1 mile an hour.
2 miles per hour?
2 miles an hour.
Let's do 2 miles per hour. Let's start with that one, okay? Now, did you conduct that test in an attempt to show that the injury patterns on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm are consistent with being struck by the Lexus taillight on that arm?
So generally, I wanted to show that the location, area, and span over which that headlight covers matches the location and area of the lacerations on his arm.
That's what I want to get to. So you discussed data that you say shows that that you say shows the Lexus SUV was traveling above 20 miles per hour during the period that you allege the SUV made contact with Mr. O'Keefe. Is that correct?
No. Where'd you get that from?
Hold on. Okay. The answer is no.
what's wrong with
So
him?
did you do a test involving 20 miles per hour?
I did some other backing tests.
Yes.
I was looking at how the rear pedestrian system and what warnings you got from the rear pre-collision system, the PCS system.
Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree that you did a blue paint test with the vehicle going at 2 miles per hour? Did you?
Of course.
Do that? Okay. You didn't do a blue paint test with the vehicle going at 20 miles per hour, correct?
That is correct. I was not going to hit myself with a Lexus at 20 miles an hour.
Surprising considering he already talked about stabbing himself with a pencil and there were some other things too. He's talked about injuring himself quite a bit already. And I'm pretty sure there's plenty of people who would have volunteered to hit him with a Lexus at 20 miles an hour. So welcome, Cat.
You could have done other tests where the vehicle was going at 20 miles per hour if you used a crash test dummy, correct? You could have done that.
If you use the right crash test dummy, and then to set up the test, because generally you only get 1 or 2 shots at it, because you damage the car, You have to know everything about the parameters. And so again, pedestrian impacts are so very sensitive to initial angles. If I were to do a test and it was off a tiny, tiny bit and we got some different results, I would be in here having to defend it. Well, your own testing didn't show it. Point is we don't have enough information to be able to conduct that testing.
So your assumption, as I understand it, is that the Lexus was going 24 miles per hour in reverse and made contact with Mr. O'Keefe. That's your analysis.
No, there is not one single slide I have that says this is the speed he was hit at 24 miles an hour.
You know, you have a hypothesis at what speed you believe there was impact. You have a point of impact.
I do not know the exact speed. We don't know the initial point of contact. We don't know where exactly he was on the road. We don't have enough information to determine that.
Exactly. Let's talk about the other information you don't have.
Okay.
Like,
You don't
why
have
are
the
you doing
information
it?
as to
You know what I mean?
the, your alleged point of contact to where Mr. O'Keefe landed. You don't have that information, do you, sir?
I'm sorry, where is my alleged point of contact?
You allege that there was a point of contact between the Lexus, the back of the Lexus, and
Correct.
Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Right, but I don't know where that is on the road.
You don't know that. I'm going to go through the information that you don't have.
Okay, nope.
You don't have that.
Okie
You
doke.
don't have the point of impact. You don't have where in the road there was impact under your allegation.
Those are the same thing.
Right. You don't have where under your view, the body of Mr. O'Keefe landed precisely. You don't have that information. Do you?
What do you mean by precisely? We know it's 7 feet off the road. We know it's near the flagpole. We don't know where it started. The problem isn't where it landed. The problem is where it started.
Right. And you don't have that information.
I don't have where it started.
The
Yeah.
paint tests that you used, aren't those used, if they're used at all, as an element of physical impact reconstruction, an element, not as the focal point of the test itself?
So that was the focal point of that test. The focal point of the purpose of that test was to show the contact width and location of how someone of Mr. O'Keefe's height, which happens to be me, contacts and where it would contact where the broken taillight was. So no, that was the focal point of the testing. That's why I did the testing. That's why we're calling it paint transfer testing.
Right. But my question, sir, I understand you.
This dude just in his contradictions though, right? Because it's like, how can you say it doesn't matter if you're the same height when you've already said, right? We don't know how he was standing. We don't know how he reacted. There's so many variables. He could have, I mean, anything could have been the case, but also, it's also not the right speed. So it's just.
Paint tests is the focal point. But aren't paint tests in accurate accident reconstruction not used as focal points? They're used as supplements to other tests to get more accurate
Agree with
information.
that.
Do you agree or disagree with that?
You didn't give me enough information. I can't agree nor disagree. It depends on what you're trying to do.
Let's go to,
Try and hit you with a car. That's what we're trying to do.
on direct examination, you testified that after the 11/6.
So, I mean, right. It's now's a really good point. Just with just this dude. Remember, this jury has likely never seen, we don't know yet, have they served on a jury before or what have you, right? But think about all of the experts from the Commonwealth, right? And especially how they spent the last week or something with the last two experts, which were Burgess and Welcher, obviously. He was on the stand for fucking ever. And if you're on the jury and you have no concept of what a normal expert witness is like, and imagine if you imagine that you think this is the norm, right? If you're on this jury, that's probably where you're at. You're thinking that you maybe wouldn't have any reason to think that this is especially odd. Now, maybe you might still think he's a jerk or whatever, but who knows? But if this is your first exposure, right, to expert witnesses, is what you saw in the Commonwealth's case in chief. Because I think that is a huge part of why the defense called Mr. DeSogra first.
62 to trigger event. Ms. Reed's vehicle traveled a distance of 87 feet. Do you recall that?
You are mixing up two things. Remember, the trigger is in the middle of the event.
Oh, God. Again, it's like his purpose here for him is to correct Mr. Alessi and to belittle Mr. Alessi and to da-da. It's all about Mr. Alessi. It's like he's not even aware of a jury, at least not until the very end of his testimony on day 23. It's like he's literally not, his purpose should be for the jury, but it's not. It's just this battle of, you don't have to say you're mixing these things up or all the way, these corrections. It's not about correcting Mr. Alessi, it's about explaining things to the jury in a way that makes sense. But again, we talked about this last time. I think that part of the Commonwealth's goal was to have an expert who doesn't explain things well to the jury. And we're going to talk more about that as well as we go along.
Give me the chart, please. Your Honor, I'll give you the, as soon as Mr. Woke gives it, the slide 23, I believe it is.
I'm sorry, what slide?
Well, I want Mr. Woke to go through it to check. Let me ask it this way, see if we can get to it quicker. Do you remember talking on direct about a calculation of 87 feet where you added, there was like a 30-something number and a 50 number and you came to 87? Do you remember that in your slide presentation, sir?
Slide 37, yes.
Right. So if we could bring up that slide, please, Your Honor, with your permission.
Okay. But the
That's
thing
36,
is
but okay.
that they're going to get, and they already got today.
Are you on 33, sir?
No, I'm on
really
36.
great-
Mr. Woke, you have 33? If you could go to 33, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because that's where your 87 number is, not on the
It's
other.
on a bunch of slides.
Yep.
Go ahead.
All right. So if you could zoom in, Mr. Woke, so Dr. Welcher can see the numbers in the column.
So you're going the wrong way.
Yep. They're to the farther to the right.
Oh, I'm not the only one that has problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's really the
You
thing.
Sir, do
don't
you
have it.
remember?
And maybe now's as good a time as any, right? So what would you guys say? Let me know in the chat. What would you guys say if you're the Commonwealth and you would just say, what are maybe potentially the two biggest threats? Okay, let me rephrase that. What would you say that if you're the Commonwealth, what is the biggest threat that you have during your own case in chief? Like, what's the biggest threat during the Commonwealth's case in chief? If you're the Commonwealth, what is their biggest threat? Well, it's their case. That's part one. Part two is when it becomes the defense's case in chief. If you're the Commonwealth, what is the biggest threat then? So the biggest threat for the Commonwealth's case in chief, and then biggest threat during the defense's case in chief from the perspective of the Commonwealth. Let me know what you guys think, and then we will talk about it.
Flying about this to the farther to the right.
Farther to the right.
Yep.
Keep going. Keep going. A
Is
little
that
more.
53 number down there? That column?
Right.
So if you
Can we scroll up a tad so you can see the headers? There you go.
Okay.
No, okay, go ahead.
So am I in the right column relative to start? Is that the column?
So there's two columns, like Z is relative to where it started, and then positive is forward, and then as you back up, once you go past zero, it becomes negative.
Right. So what I want to do is have you direct us to the column where you calculated 87 feet.
It's in two spots. It's at the end of column Y.
Right. We go all the way down. Is that in the yellow there?
Oh, I need to
Is
send
that
Sway
87,
some
sir?
special
It is.
thoughts.
Okay. Is that the 87 number you were
Hold on a
referring to?
second. You asked me to identify. So then see where the one next to it says minus 53,
Yes.
0.429. If you go up, so it's not a little bit down, a little bit, and see where it's changing directions at 34.157.
Yes.
You add those two together, that gives you the same result. So it went 34 feet forward and then 50 something feet backwards.
Right. And what is the 87 feet traveled? Is that what you're indicating is the distance traveled during the trigger? Is that what the 87 represents to you?
That is so 87 represents the total rearward distance traveled during the trigger.
Okay. So you believe 87 represents the total rearward distance. Did I hear it correctly?
Correct.
Now, can you
Just hold on to be clear. So it starts, it pulls forward, then it backs up, passes where it initially started, and goes 53 feet further back.
That's what I want to get to. How many feet did you say on direct, and did you just say now that it went 87 feet in reverse?
Correct.
Okay.
From its furthest point forward.
Well, that's what I want to get to because I want to have this point clear. How many feet do you believe the Lexus went in reverse based upon your PowerPoint presentation? Not when it went forward and then came backwards. How many feet do you believe that vehicle went in reverse?
Your question doesn't make any sense because when it was
Okay. This is just insane. So there's Twiz. I just sent him a special custom text and there he is. Hi, Twiz. Right. So it needs some weighing in the science and the medical proof. Okay. So I guess what I'm thinking of is and I agree totally, but like in terms of how that would come out at trial, like during the Commonwealth's case in chief, what is their biggest threat in terms of the defense making so much headway, right? During the Commonwealth's case, what is the big threat? And then again, same question for the defense case in chief. What is the biggest threat if you're the Commonwealth that they would be trying to strategize against? And this is I think what they were thinking about after trial number one. You know, when they made all these decisions, they decided to hire Hank Brennan and all the other changes that they made. I think that they were assessing these biggest threats and like literally versus really trying to necessarily prove their case. I think that their big strategy was, okay, because the defense is so strong, right? The defense is so strong. And they're not, I mean, while they are idiots in a lot of ways, and they're definitely like not, they don't, there's a lot of ethical issues and all kinds of issues, right? I don't think that that everybody there at the DA's office is necessarily stupid, in the sense that they can see that the defense is a force, right? And so if you're not really focused on proving your case, then it's like offense versus defense, right? It's like, then you would be saying, okay, what are the biggest threats that we know from trial number 1, right? And how can we change it up for trial number 2 to thwart and minimize those threats, right? Exactly, needs some Z's. So, yeah, the DA's office. So basically, that's hilarious, Kat. Is it a June wedding? Oh my God. And I think too, you've got Welcher with the crash test dummy, but honestly, Welcher and Brennan seem to have like a thing going on as well. And then there you have your accidental boner. So there's Heather as well. So basically, I think that in terms of, if you're during the Commonwealth for their case in chief, I think that the way that they assessed it is, when it's their case in chief, what was their biggest threat from the defense? And I think that potentially they viewed it as Mr. Alessi's cross-examinations. That's what I because his cross-examinations have been so good, right? And not that everybody, I mean, they're all the attorney, they're all great, right? But especially because of how he's really able to typically dismantle the experts, right? And just go through things, and he's so smart, right? I mean, he's just brilliant, right? So if it's the Commonwealth's case in chief, then it's the cross examinations. I think specifically of Mr. Alessi, and I think that they knew he was going to be, because that's what he's really been doing. He's been doing most if not all the experts for cross, right? So if you're the Commonwealth and you're like, okay, how can we defend against the biggest threat potentially, for as they might perceive it during our own case in chief? And that would be, okay, Mr. Alessi and his cross examinations of our experts, right? And if you're thinking, okay, well, we can't really get credible, we can't get Kenny Kinsey, right? And we really need, we're not doing Trooper Paul. We can't get Kenny Kinsey. No one credible will take us. So what would be your strategy then? If you're saying in other words, is their goal, I think personally, wasn't to hire, because they couldn't, an accident reconstruction expert that could really prove their case. Wasn't going to happen. So instead, what do? I think what you do is you say, we need to find an accident reconstruction expert, quote unquote, who can minimize the damage done on cross-examination. So here's what I mean specifically. That I think the direct exam, and we talked about this a ton, obviously, like, he's not explaining things to the jury on direct. Like, on direct, he's making things make less sense, right? And it was just like, I don't think that there was anything really gained from that. Let me know if you guys were on the jury, do y'all feel like you learned anything helpful on direct from him? I feel like the answer would be no, but let me know what you guys think. So in other words, I think that their strategy was find a guy, right, who on direct exam will just basically not do anything. Like, essentially, not that this could actually happen. It's almost like they could have they might be looking for an expert witness for this, who literally could just say nothing on direct. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, you're not trying to prove anything with direct. I think that their goal instead is to have somebody who could minimize the damage done on cross. And so it's like, it's not, in other words, the strategy was not about like gaining headway, if you will, or like making steps forward. I think that the strategy was more about trying to prevent or defend against getting steps backwards, right? Losing ground, like 2 steps forward and 3 steps back or whatever. I think that they had to accept that they were only going to get 0 steps forward with a direct exam of this expert, or well, again, because they couldn't get somebody who, there's no credible expert who could look at the facts of the case and prove the Commonwealth's theory, right? So if you're trying to take all this and just basically try to make it look like someone's an expert, but you're not, it's clear they weren't actually trying to help the jury understand. That's very clear, right? So if you're like, okay, we're going to go with neutral, we're going to go with 0 steps forward or back on direct, then your big threat is Mr. Alessi on cross, and you're going to try to minimize 100 steps back, right? Especially because this is coming out after Jud Welcher, Shannon Burgess. So I was thinking about this when I was driving home from work yesterday. I was thinking I wonder if they literally tried to find a guy who has a reputation for being like this on cross. And I would love to know if he's like this, if this is his thing, if he's like this with everybody on cross, because clearly this is not his first time doing this, taking this approach, right? With being on cross. So it's like on direct examination, it's just word salad. It's just rattling out numbers, not explaining anything, those tests that were ridiculous. And then on cross, it's like literally just tried. It's like really, they're just trying to use him to discredit Mr. Alessi. I think that's what it is, right? It's like trying to make Mr. Alessi look stupid or whatever, and just, again, minimize the damage done on cross via the expert, but also to try to take shots at Mr. Alessi and make the jury think less of him. And I think that's the best they literally could do. So with that being the case, because their case is shit, they really did a good job of finding an expert witness who would achieve those purposes. Do you guys see what I mean by that? Absolutely, that's true. He's a salesman. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the whole thing, though. I mean, everybody, and I'm sure we all agree. I mean, more than likely, I agree. We've never seen anything like this, right, from an expert witness. So that's why it's like this dude has like honed this type of attitude, if you will, and strategy. I have to say, I don't think it would be easy to maintain this type of demeanor on cross-exam for so long, because some people, they might be able to do it here and there, but like with every single question, fighting every single question the way that he does, that's like a lot of energy. You know what I mean? It's a lot of energy put into that, right? Just to try to keep Mr. Alessi from gaining headway for the defense, right? And then also, and therefore, steps back for the Commonwealth, but also I think to try to make this, hoping the jury will think Mr. Alessi is stupid and therefore be like, oh, well, we can just discredit him for the rest of the trial then, you know what I mean? Yeah, Lucy isn't. Is this the permanent change, Heather? Are you Lucy from now on? Do we need to just change it to Lucy? Because we can do that, but it would be weird because we're all used to Heather. That's exactly right. Thank you. Information dump and confuse the jury. Yep. Or just hope that they tune it out because they're bored, which I think probably a lot of them did. I know a lot of people watching it did. It was just like, again, just it was really just useless. And I mean, it didn't really get exciting until he started doing his dumb tests, right? Information dump and confuse the jury / information dump and maybe bore the jury. Maybe you're hoping half the jury's confused and the other half is bored. And, because when you can't make sense of it, what else are you going to do? Right. And when you can't get a credible witness, that doesn't surprise me. I think I think you could pay him to say whatever or do whatever. You know what I mean? And he literally does that. I mean, he contradicts himself continuously. Oh, hi, Twiz. Welcome, Twiz. What the fuck is juicy? I mean, I agree. It's the dumbest strategy. But what else are they going to do, right? I mean, obviously the smart thing would have been not to try the case. But if they're still trying for a conviction, right? The thing is they can't reinvent the facts of the case, even though they've tried that as well. You know what I mean? Literally, they've tried that. The timeline shift. I mean, it's like, so well, I guess I can take that back. They are also trying to reinvent the facts of the case. But even with that, okay, even with that, it's not going to be enough to explain what happened, right? It just doesn't add up. And you can't explain it. There's no way to make it make sense. But you're still going forward with a case, so what do you do? I mean, you shouldn't be doing that, but if that's what they're doing, so then that's how they have to tailor their strategy, you know what I mean? It's staying until after Koberger's trial. Okay, should we change it to Lucy then, your command? And that's exactly right. If the jury just tunes him out, it's like he didn't testify. Right. That's my point, because I think that there's nothing that they can gain from having someone testify about this, especially when the facts are shit and when they can't get someone credible. Right. So that's why I'm saying I think the best they can do is literally it just ends up being a wash, because they can't prove anything on direct, and they're just trying to keep the defense from making headway on cross. So that it's like they put up this accident reconstruction expert, but like at least they didn't hurt their case more. Like that's what I'm saying. Like if you're the Commonwealth, maybe that's what you're thinking. You're like, well, at least he didn't make our case worse, right? Like, you see what I mean? Yeah, I corrected myself. I think you're referencing there the fact. Yeah, I corrected myself. Sometimes it's like I say things because it's like so used to how reality normally is, and then you have to recalibrate that. Like, oh right, sorry, that's not even the case here. Yeah, me too, Lucy, Heather. What are you mentioning about the jury here? Needs some Z's. Do you think that there's jury issues this year? So also I didn't do Kane's command. Welcome to Kane. I already said that, but let's do his command. Shout out to the Rat Daddy, who was playing around with some alternate guitar tunings. By the way, Kane, just for you or anyone who plays guitar, I use like a bazillion different alternate tunings. And on all of my different videos, for every video, I always put which guitar I'm using, but also I put every single tuning in the description of every video in case anyone who plays guitar is interested in just playing around with some new tunings, because they're awesome and you can do some really cool things. Every video has in the description has, I think the tuning is like at the top. So anywho, that's right. Sometimes when you talk, it's like you're in the real reality, and then you realize we aren't talking about real reality here. And you know what's so funny? Even this dude on direct said something. What was it? He said real world time. I have it timestamped actually. He was talking about basically made up time in regards to this timeline for the Commonwealth, right? And then whenever he was trying to like compare it to how it normally is, he called that real world time. It was just like, wow, man. It's like, dude. Right. I mean, and again, the other thing I will say, I think that if you're Hank Brennan, you're really hanging your hat on those interview clips. And that became infinitely clear when we get to day 24. That became infinitely clear. That's the thing. It's like try to put on a case and pretend you've got a case and that you can actually prove things. But really, I think that the strategy is let's just hope the jury convicts based on the interview clips. I mean, that's what I think it really is, right? So again, this dude, if he just comes out as a wash, right, because he can't actually prove anything, and Alessi and him just, go through this whole thing on cross where like no one's really getting anywhere, and it's just trying to make Mr. Alessi look bad. But then you after that, so you're in a neutral, right? And then after that, you have. They don't end with him. They end with the clip. They're just like hoping Karen Reed can talk herself into a guilty verdict. 100% Carla, totally agrees. Testimony didn't prove 100%. I mean, does anybody think it did prove that? Yeah, I see what you mean, meets and Z's. The other thing is this. I also was thinking about why they chose St. Brennan specifically. The Commonwealth, right? Again, thinking about what are your biggest threats if you're the Commonwealth. Your biggest threats are the defense cross exams during your case in chief, right? Especially for Mr. Alessi. But then the defense expert witnesses, because they know the defense experts are extraordinarily qualified and the jury will likely find them credible, right? It's like, I say likely because we can't know what's in the jury's mind, although I know, it seems like, how could you not, right? So, and again, similar thing, where if the defense experts, well, I might be getting ahead of myself. Let me save that, actually. I'm going to save that thought for when we get to day 24, actually, because I thought about this a lot when I was listening to some of the testimony from today I was like, oh my gosh, it's just really become clear as to why Hank specifically. So.
Went forward, then it went in reverse.
How many feet do you believe the Lexus went during the trigger?
So it went a total of 80, it went 34 feet forward, then it came back 80, another 53 feet past where it went.
Exactly.
Who's got a Mohawk?
You've testified that the 1162-2 trigger event represents a backwards maneuver, correct?
So again, that was clear. It initially pulls forward and then backs up.
I would like you to define, so it's clear to the jury, do you consider the event of 1162-2 just backward movement, or do you consider the trigger to be forward movement and adding to it backward movement? Which one?
So can we pull the slide up?
Sure.
Could you zoom in? There you go. No, go back to the left.
Yes.
So that T in the third column for data ID represents the trigger. If you scroll over a little bit to the right, where the highlighted yellow blocks are, you can see 1 is a forward drive gear, 0 is neutral, 2 is reverse. So that's where it's switched from forward to reverse. I mentioned the brake. So you have it on the brakes coming in, slowing, stopping, going into reverse, and then backing up.
So you conclude that the vehicle for this trigger went 34 feet forward, is that correct?
Correct.
How do you know the vehicle didn't go 150 feet forward? How do you know it just went 30 feet, 4 feet forward? How do you know that?
So the only data we have is this 10-second window. And so we have the velocity when it's going forward. We know how much time it took to do that. So that tells us how far it would travel. Velocity times time is distance.
Yeah, but only a 10-second window. And remember, it even came out on direct that it just stops recording. It's like it's limited to the amount of time. So it doesn't mean that the car didn't keep moving, because he actually, that was on direct. Because initially this dude says the car stopped, and then Brennan actually asked the question again. And he was like, and then Jud Welcher corrected himself. He's like, sorry, I didn't mean the car stopped. I meant the data stopped, because the triggering event stops recording after 10 seconds or whatever total. And so that's, I think, the point of this question is like the car could have kept moving, right?
So are you saying that it is a certainty that it went forward 34 feet and there's no other number of feet it could have gone forward? You're absolutely certain of the 34 number?
No. Again, if you look, see where it says vehicle speed?
I see it.
So at the start of this event, which is the trigger -5, so the trigger is actually where it's triggered, and it takes 5 seconds before, 5 seconds after. But when the trigger happens, it's actually stopped. But the 5 seconds before, it's going 13.6 miles an hour forward. So at the start of the data, it's still going 13.6 miles an hour forward, but it's slowing down. You can see you have the brake, where it says brake SW, which is short for switch. The brake switch is a 1, which means it's on. So when this event data started, it's going 13 miles an hour.
I'll ask the question a different way. Are you certain that the distance traveled forward during this trigger event was 34 feet? Are you certain?
Bevel denied.
I'm pretty certain during the trigger event.
Pretty certain or certain?
Well, I've checked the math. I've had people check my math. So I try to be as accurate as possible. I would say I'm certain,
Okay.
but I'm an engineer. So there's no absolutes. There's no 100% in my job.
So you're certain of that?
That's like when maybe one of the only things that he says that I actually agree with and appreciate, because yeah. And it's the same with a lot of these different fields that we hear experts testify in, right? You should never, never say there is no 100%, there is no absolutes.
The 34 feet. And is it correct that you're certain of 53 feet going backwards? Are you certain of that, sir?
So backwards from its initial starting position.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And therefore you are certain of a total of 87 feet traveled that you have at the bottom in that yellow orange. You're certain of that as well?
87 feet of backing, correct.
Okay. Now you also testified on direct, as I understand it, in slide 23, that different numbers represent different gear states of the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
And a 0 represents neutral?
I think it's either neutral or park, but I'm pretty sure it's neutral.
A 1 represents drive?
Correct.
Pretty sure.
A 2 represents reverse?
Correct.
Or a 2 can represent slowing down, is that correct?
Not for a gear shift number.
So you didn't say on direct that 2 could represent reverse or slowing down?
God, I hope not. It doesn't. So those numbers simply represent,
God, I hope
is the
not.
transmission in drive? Is it in neutral? Is it in reverse? It doesn't tell you anything about whether it's slowing down or not. But the brake switch and the brake pressure and the longitudinal accelerometer data gives you some information on that.
Okay, so if Your Honor, we could go to slide 30, please.
By the way, I've got some awesome news stories from the law firm from the past couple days that you guys will love, that we'll get to maybe again when we finish day 22.
Okay. Mr. Wolf?
Award for
And I want to do it generally. There's not a need to read any specific number. I just want it clarified.
Mr. Alessi, so is this 30 or 31?
slides are so pointless. I mean, how is the jury or anyone supposed to see this, right? I mean, God.
It's I'm sorry, Your Honor, you are correct. It's 31 in the most up-to-date
Even when
presentation.
they
Thank
zoom in, it's like,
you. You see all the numbers in.
why are you trying? This dude has done this with this entire presentation. Every single slide has way too much stuff on it, or like, whether it's numbers or whether it's pictures. It's like, again, the whole thing, like, don't actually, it's not really about trying to show the jury what the shit is, right? It's like trying to keep them from seeing what it is, in my opinion.
In blue font on that slide, sir?
You do?
Those are all numbers that you have placed on that slide. Did I have that correct in your direct presentation?
You do?
Okay. So this Excel spreadsheet, there's also numbers in black, correct?
Correct.
So all the ones that are in blue, those are numbers that you have placed into the spreadsheet, correct?
Correct. The one exception is column N, where it says ship position.
Yes.
I changed green to forward and red to reverse.
So the data in the columns in blue are not from the original data that was downloaded from the vehicle, correct?
Like, for example, if you look at column
Definitely.
H, I simply did a unit conversion. So it's the same number, it's just in different units. But the black numbers represent exactly as it comes out of the vehicle, but it's the same number.
All right, that's what I wanted to get to. So for clarity for this slide, when you download this data from the vehicle, what is in black, those numbers just come right out, correct?
Correct.
As they're stated. But the blue numbers, they don't come out like the numbers in blue. You have to do something, some calculation, some application to get to the blue, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, no, we're going to keep that up, Mr. Woke, please. Thank you. And when we need to get to the specific numbers, we'll be fair and make sure you can see them. Now, in these columns, do I understand it correctly that you attempted to account for wheel slippage in the revolutions per minute speed values produced by the car?
Not here. You're looking, this is 1162-1. The wheel slippage occurred in 1162-2.
Okay, and so if we go to a slide with 1162.2, we will then go to the slide you believe represents wheel slippage. Is that correct?
There are data points in that represent slippage.
That's my question. In which slide, sir, would you like to pick?
35.
Thank you. So we will go to slide 35.
So, Kane, are you asking, is this a legitimate question? Is she going to win? I mean, it's like she should win. I mean, obviously, but she should have been charged in the first place. And like, I mean, it's just, again, like what needs to be. There's the thing that makes it tough is that there's always this backup, like, safety net, right? Whether it be, who knows if there's going to be some fuckery going on with the jury. Then there's, of course, the completely atrocious and unfair and, completely, in my opinion, unlawful rulings from Judge Bev. It's like literally, it's all like borderline having it be rigged type of shit, right? You know what I mean? So that makes it hard to answer. Oh, one thing I will say though, I learned, so right before I started working at the firm, I think this was like 2 weeks ago, One of the attorneys had a second degree murder trial. You guys will love this one. The second degree murder trial, and they were running a self-defense. It was a self-defense, case, like for the defense, like they were going with this self-defense, like affirmative defense strategy, and they got an acquittal. Isn't that amazing? It's because we know how rare that is. The new job stories. Yeah, there's some really good ones. Oh my gosh. And that's absolutely right. Yep. They've only shoveled, funneled, dumped. Who even knows how much money, right? I feel like when they're from the principal's office. Well, I mean, it's hard to say that with any trial, right? Because you never know what the jury's thinking. I hate to sound like everyone else that weighs in on it, but you really never know what the jury's thinking. But all we can do is try to stay objective. Like, okay, if we were on the jury, trying to be objective as much as possible, and assuming you're a reasonable juror, how might you be viewing this evidence? But then you have to take into account if there's other extenuating circumstances, which not every trial has, but this one does for sure. So, is who a good speller?
So
I've highlighted the slippage.
exactly. So you agree that there is data that shows that there is wheel slippage with the Lexus SUV during trigger event. Let's enlarge it for this one here. The trigger event, the number 1162-2, correct?
Correct.
And as I understand it, you testified that this trigger event was caused by a depression of the accelerator pedal at more than the 30%. Is that correct?
It's a transition into reverse and then a quick acceleration exceeding 30%.
So let's
in reverse.
Okay, got it. So the accelerator pedal being depressed to this degree, more than 30%, can be the result of wheel slippage, correct?
It doesn't necessarily work that way. You can have wheel slippage at any acceleration, technically, depending on the roadway. It's just what is in the data that shows that it's slipping. It isn't necessarily because of the accelerator. Normally, that's what causes slippage. But it's the data. When you look at the data, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. It's increasing in speed, but yet the longitudinal acceleration is dropping.
My question,
Yeah.
again, doctor, is you can have an accelerator pedal
And that's true.
depressed greater than 30%, and it be caused
You have
by
your
wheel
emoji.
slippage. That can occur, correct?
The wheel slippage does not cause the accelerator pedal.
I'm not saying a cause and effect. I'm just saying a correlation. Do you understand what I mean by a correlation?
Let me, if I may try and straighten this out. So
I'm not
applying heavy acceleration can cause the wheels to spin. Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to get
Wow.
at. Alrighty. So in your review of the materials that are related to January 29, 2022,
Let me see if I can try to straighten this out. This is just completely. Again, speaking of things that aren't normal, in any other trial that I've seen, with very few exceptions that I can think of, literally in any jurisdiction, the judge would not tolerate this. The judge would step in, because the thing is like, Mr. Alessi takes an approach that is trying to be very measured, as we know, right? And I think also knowing that when he does ask, well, in general, when the defense tries to ask for Judge Bev to do something that would be normal for anyone else, such as asking him to answer yes or no, that she'll just assist the witness. Now, that does seem to change a little bit when we get to the next day, but at least for this part, it's like, okay, I'm going to try to just stay the course, right? That's where Mr. Alessi's at right now. But having said that, right, with somebody like this who fights every single answer is just improper, completely improper, to say the least. And, it wouldn't be reasonable for the defense or for any defense, right, to have to object, or not object, but have to ask for help from the judge for every question. It's just not like you would have to ask every time. Like, in other words, when you've got somebody like this, where it's with the judge any other judge would have stepped in once it started happening consistently, which was like, whatever, the beginning of cross, right? Couple questions in, like it shouldn't even need to come from the defense. The judge should have stepped in so that, it doesn't create any prejudice to the defense for having to ask for it. But also because, again, it wouldn't be practical, right, for them to make that request with every question that he'd answer it and not make all these snide remarks. And I mean, honestly, if you wanted to go with what are the proper objections here, literally every answer he gives could be objected to for being non-responsive. Also, objection, no question pending. Like literally, that's what we should be doing. Let's play that game.
Did you become aware of whether there were, and you said you extensively reviewed documents, did you become aware whether there were people at 34 Fairview?
Yes.
And approximately how many people, without regard to names, just number, how many people did you become aware were at 34 Fairview on January 29th, 2022, the early morning hours? How many people approximately did you become aware were present?
It depends on which time, but there could be as many as 16.
As many as 16. And let's talk about the time period from midnight to 1 a.m. Do you have an understanding of how many people could have been present at 34 Fairview at that time period?
So I'm going to see you at sidebar on this, Mr.
Why? She intervenes. I'm going to see you at sidebar. Nobody, there wasn't even an objection.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Welcher, am I correct in my understanding that you believe under your theory, the Lexus for event 1162-2 backed up 53 feet? Am I correct?
No, it backed up a total of 87 feet.
Okay, let's take your 87. It backed up a total of 87, okay?
Correct.
And your further theory is that it did so and reached 24 miles per hour, correct?
Correct.
And you stated you have an understanding of a certain number of people, and I don't want to talk about the inside of the house, but just that were at 34 Fairview between roughly 12 and 1 a.m. Do you have an understanding of that, sir? Approximately.
I believe I do.
And what is that number?
Did you want them people that were there for that entire window of time, or just?
Yes, 12 to 1.
Oh.
So Mr. Alessi, just move to the last question.
Right, sure. So, sir, did you assume that there were cars parked out front of 34 Fairview at that 12 to 1 o'clock window? Did you assume any cars parked out front?
The entire time?
No, I'm just talking 12 to, any time between 12 and 1. Did you make any assumptions whether there were cars parked out front on the roadway at 34 Fairview? Did you make any assumptions with regard to that?
At a point in time, there was a vehicle behind it.
I'm sorry?
There was a vehicle behind it.
Just one?
That is my understanding in terms of on the street.
On
is your
the
question.
street, exactly. And what, do you remember the type of vehicle?
Yes.
What kind of vehicle was it?
An F-150 pickup.
Did you have any understanding as to
But what about the Jeep though?
whether there was
I know that
a Jeep vehicle on the road at that 12 to 1 time period?
I had seen testimony somewhere to that effect, but the majority of the testimony was there were no other vehicles.
But you did see testimony that there was also a Jeep type vehicle on the front, out the front of 34.
In other words, if her vehicle is sandwiched between two vehicles, how does it do this whole? How? The number of feet, as everyone knows, right, doesn't make sense given the size of the yard. If that's what they're gonna, if there's no other vehicles on the road and she's going into the yard, she would have slammed into the house, right? But if she's not going into the yard and slamming into the house, and there's vehicles on the road, like vehicle in front and vehicle behind, Jeep and truck.
Fairview between 12 and 1. Is that what you're recalling?
So I'm going to let that answer stand, what he's just testified to. Just go ahead and.
Okay, so Dr. Welcher, what I want to do is to have you, using your data, you say 87 feet for the backup, correct?
Correct.
1162, up to 24 miles per hour. Isn't there a likelihood, if there is at least one vehicle out in front of 34 Fairview, that there would be a collision of the Lexus SUV with the vehicle out front?
No, the vehicle had left prior to the end or prior to event 1162-2.
What information do you have with regard to how many vehicles are in front of 34 Fairview at between 12 and 1?
So I have Ms. Reed's interview statements. I have statements of a number of witnesses. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the names.
I was just going to say, let's not just number of vehicles.
Okay, so I have a number of witness statements at multiple statements from the same witnesses at different times, indicating the path and following the Lexus to the house and then leaving before the event.
Assume that there were vehicles, at least one vehicle parked out front of 34 Fairview.
See, it's twiz when you need him.
Is there a likelihood that given 24 miles per hour over 87 feet, is there a likelihood that there would be a collision given the weather conditions as you knew them to be at that time?
Well, the weather I don't think necessarily plays into whether there would be a collision or not, but we know it backed up 87 feet. So
So that
again, it
would
goes
be- again,
forward
that-
like 35.
It was a non-responsive thing. Now, what's really especially funny about that to me, let me play that again.
24 miles per hour over 87 feet. Is there a likelihood that there would be a collision given the weather conditions as you knew them to be at that time?
Well, the weather I don't think necessarily plays into whether there would be a collision or not.
Hold that thought. I couldn't believe it when I heard this the first time. So we look at give me just one sec. Okay. So he just said, I don't think that the weather would have anything to do with whether there be a collision or not. Like he's saying the weather doesn't matter here. It's not involved, which makes no sense for a lot of reasons because obviously the traction on the road would matter. But anyway, regardless, leaving that aside, looking at the elements of the charges, right, that the Commonwealth has, what they've charged her with, right? These are the jury instructions. Okay, here we go. So there's the liquor part. Wait for it. All right. In determining whether the defendant drove recklessly in a manner that might have endangered the lives or safety of other people, you should take into account evidence, if any, about the defendant's rate of speed and manner of operation, the defendant's physical condition, how well they could see and control their vehicle, the condition of the vehicle, kind of road, the time of day, the weather, and the road conditions. The weather. Actually, let me just control F myself real quick because that's the easiest way to do it. I don't know, it might come up again. Come on, Adobe. You can do it. Okay, so then that's for one of them. Let me pull up the next one. It's great. It's just great. Let me just share. I'm going to share this way. I'm going to share my whole screen and that'll make it easier. Okay, so there we go. So then next one. So this is these are for count two. All right, count two. So this is one of the other options for count two, depending on the BAC and whatnot. Okay, take into account defense vehicle, kind of road, who else is on the road, time of day, the weather, and the road conditions. Okay, next. This is the lesser included for count two. And remember, this is actually why, in the first trial, in my opinion, Lolly spent the majority of the trial talking about the weather. Like Lolly was smart in a way, in the sense that he's like, well, how are we going to prove anything about this case? Well, if we can prove that it was snowing, given that the word weather comes up so many times in these jury instructions, maybe the jury will just connect weather with snow and just convict. Like that was this. It's not a bad strategy with this case, right? If you're going to be, because literally the weather, he's like, but let's focus. And then also that it was at nighttime. Let's focus on the time of day and the weather and hope we can get a conviction on that. There it is again. The weather, the road conditions. Okay. And then I believe it also comes up in count three. I believe. Oh my God. Why are we doing that? Let's not do that. Oh my God. Okay. Okay, no, it's not in count three. Although what's interesting, while we're here, I do want to note something because I was doing earlier the timestamps for at the end of the last live stream where they're arguing about something from day 21. And they're arguing about, what is it? Oh yeah, okay. So when at the end of direct, or well, what we thought was the end, when Jud Welcher says that that is definitely what happened or whatever, talking about the collision, right? Like when he's asked, like, did you think the vehicle hit John O'Keefe? He's like, that is what happened. Do you guys remember that part? And then they had a sidebar, like dismissed the jury, and then they argued about it outside the presence of the jury. And Brennan argues that they don't have to prove a collision, that this isn't about a collision, because the defense was like, there was no collision. Then he's like, the defense is making an assumption that our whole case is about a collision. He's like, we don't have to, it's not about a collision, da 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 da. And I literally said it on the live stream. I was like, well, hang on. Because besides the fact that that's what you're trying to say is what happened, never mind that. Let's go to the jury instructions. Literally, the word collision is in the jury instruction this is for count 3. It's actually the only one that includes the word collision, unless they make an alteration from the state. These are the standard jury instructions, right? But from the standard jury instructions, the word collision is literally an element of count 3. And actually it comes up again. The defendant doesn't have to know that there had been a collision. Well, if they're dead, it doesn't matter anyway. So there you go. I mean, isn't that wild? And he's like, he literally, it's crazy. It's crazy. Brennan just completely, I mean, the jury didn't hear it, but like, okay. It's just bad. So, okay, let me see what you guys are saying. So Kane was giving us these nicknames. You said somebody was, who was it now? It was, where'd it go? Oh, Eric Menendez, you said. I think you're talking about Mr. Alessi. So Kane had said he was giving everybody nicknames. So what was the name you gave this guy, Kane? So let me just present this so that the audio will work properly. Okay. There we go.
But we know it backed up 87 feet. So again, it goes forward like 35-ish and then back like 60 something. And so if something is within 65 feet of the rear of it, or whatever the numbers are, I need my slides.
It was 50.
50,
Yeah,
57. If something is within that window, then it would hit it.
All right, good. So now let's look at another scenario.
Oh,
If it's going as you describe it, is there a likelihood that the Lexus would also go?
You know what's so funny too? I just thought of it too. I mean, the other funny thing, right, about blaming it on the weather is like, that's literally what, if you're thinking about the head injury, I mean, I made the joke in one of the other live streams that like literally what Brennan was hoping to elicit, right, was that literally it was the cold frozen ground that murdered him, right? That's what where the blunt force trauma came from. It was the ground that did it, which why was it cold and frozen? Because of the weather. So it's just great. So Carl is asking, can't the jury just ignore the instructions, especially if this isn't about a collision? So they're not supposed to ignore the instructions. They're supposed to follow the instructions. Technically, I mean, yeah, as y'all know, the deliberations are always like, you know, you can't, well, the jurors can all speak out about what the deliberation process was like if they so choose, right? But no one can invade the, can invade that by, like, and when I say no one, I mean the court, right? And, or the attorneys, whatever, can't ask about the deliberations process. That is only for the jury. And so technically, while there's things that they should and shouldn't do, literally, who knows? And really, it's like essentially, it's like almost a cage match, right? You could picture, it's like whatever the result is what the jury is, what the result is. You know what I mean? So, you know, for example, we hear stories about how, the jury like completely ignored the theories offered by both sides and came up with their own theory, even though they're like, that's not part of what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, but that's what they did. And that resulted in a verdict, you know, what have you. Another example is a lot of times, you guys have probably heard this in different trials. A lot of times the judges will give, when they do the jury instructions, they'll say to the jury, we actually recommend against doing a straw poll, right? And they'll say something like, you know, you may think that, as you know, when you go back to deliberate, that the first thing you should do when you walk in the room would be a straw poll, where you just say, okay, raise your hand for guilty or not guilty, what have you, right? And this is a very commonly stated piece of recommendation, if you will, for the jury, right? And then they'll say, we actually recommend against that. We recommend we recommend against you doing a straw poll, right? Until you've had a chance to deliberate and da-da-da. And there's like studies that reflect certain things on that, and that's where that comes from. But whenever that is given, and then we hear jury speak it, like literally every jury, when they speak out, they'll say like, we did a straw poll. Like we went back in the room to a straw poll. Like that's what they do to see where everybody was at. And I think that actually that is even true for trial number 1. The jury did a straw poll first thing, right? And then they would regularly go back and reevaluate and see if anybody had changed, you know, in the first trial. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, Carla, though. But yeah, I mean, they should follow the in other words, they should follow the jury instructions. That's the point. But if they don't, does the verdict still stand? Yes. Yep. That's the thing. And will we ever know? Sometimes no. Sometimes we will never know if they follow the instructions or not. It just depends on if they speak out after the fact, right? But even if we find out that after the fact that they didn't really follow the instructions, as long as there wasn't any like, you know, outside influences, as long as they weren't breaking the rules, right? You know, in terms of like, you know, jury tampering or anything like that, or like looking on social media, what have you, right? You know, they're allowed to, it's the process, and you know, the verdict stands. So, okay.
On the lawn in front of 34 Fairview.
It depends on where it starts.
You have an opinion, don't you, as to where it starts?
No, I do not. That's actually why I have that diagram showing it off to the side.
That's
I'm
right.
simply showing how far it moved forward, how far it moved back.
Exactly.
We don't know where on the roadway it started.
Exactly. You don't know where on the roadway it started. And therefore, all you have is the distance covered, correct?
Correct.
So, but you're saying the distance is 87 feet, correct?
87 feet backwards, yes.
So backwards, 24 miles an hour.
The point he's trying to make here is that he doesn't know where the vehicle was location-wise when it started this backup or backing maneuver event, right? This triggering event. They don't know where the car was located apart from, according to the Commonwealth, just in front of 34 Fairview, right? So therefore, to do all his calculations, what he's relying upon is how many feet he thinks it traveled. But the point Mr. Alessi is making is that you don't actually know, because the triggering event only records for 10 seconds, even when the vehicle can still be moving. So therefore, basically all your calculations are shit.
Have you ever driven a vehicle backwards 24 miles an hour, sir?
Yes, I think I've driven this Lexus backwards 24 miles.
Right. So if anybody's driven a vehicle back, have you ever driven any vehicle back 24 miles an hour at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the morning?
Probably not since I got out of high school.
Have you ever done it when there's a storm that is beginning?
No.
Have you ever done it when there is less than clear visibility?
No and no.
And have you ever done it when there's low lighting?
Oh, you know, maybe when I've been up skiing in the snow, I've done it. But again, that's been decades.
Right. So
What? You drove your car on the ski slopes? I don't understand.
No.
And have you ever done it when there's low lighting?
Oh, you know, maybe when I've been up skiing in the snow, I've done it. But again, that's been decades.
Right. So
What the fuck? Are you wearing skis in the car? What is going on? Are you driving a car on the ski slopes? Well, actually, I guess we're getting to one of the parts that wouldn't rule that out. So
87 feet, 24 miles an hour. Are you saying that in every instance that vehicle will stay on the road, and for 34 Fairview, it wouldn't go up on the lawn?
When you mean every instance, mean like every possible location on the road it starts from?
Correct.
No, there's some spots. If you start here, it's going to go up on the road, on the yard. If you start too far on the other side, you're going to go over into the neighbor's yard. So it depends on where you start.
Right. And so in given the conditions that we've just described, right? The
Conditions
weather,
have nothing to do
I
with where
need
you
to finish
start.
my question, sir.
Only one at a time.
Yes, ma'am.
Let him finish his question, please.
Given the conditions that you've described, it is reasonable
I'm saying
conclude
wear skis in a car while you're
that vehicle, under your parameters, would have gone up on the lawn. Is that a reasonable conclusion?
No.
So you don't think there's any possibility that could occur a vehicle going 24 miles an hour at this location, 87 feet backwards, in the dark, with wet pavement at a minimum, and low lighting? You don't believe it's possible for the vehicle to, under your scenario, to have gone up on the lawn? That's not
So
possible.
your first question was reasonable, and I said no. Now you're asking possible. It, of course, is possible.
Objection on
Whether it's
responsive.
reasonable or not, I have to know the starting position.
Right.
If it's very close to the side, then it could be reasonable. If it's further towards the middle of the road because snow is building up on the side of the road, then it's probably not as reasonable. I would need more information to be able to determine whether it's reasonable or not. It's certainly possible. It's possible it could have shot off into space as an engineer, but not probable.
Oh, you
Y'all.
Oh, because snow is building up on the side of the road, then it's probably not as reasonable. I would need more information to be able to determine whether it's reasonable or not. It's certainly possible. It's possible it could have shot off into space as an engineer, but not probable.
Oh, you think it's possible that it could have been shot off into space, sir?
As an engineer, it's a possibility.
It's a
So I actually have some things for this that I was saving. Okay. For anyone who hasn't seen some of these are good. Good here. So see? Here's another one. Look, it says anything is possible. Like I'm on a boat. There it is. What was the caption on the other one? The other one had a, oh yeah, right. New Commonwealth theory just dropped. So we have new Commonwealth theory just dropped. And then we have anything is possible. Oh man, it's so good. Oh dear.
possibility that
Absolutely.
this Lexus could have been shot off into space.
Yeah, highly unlikely. But
Right.
again, you're asking an engineer about possibilities and probabilities.
Let's get back to reality. So in terms of the Lexus itself, because you, under your method of analysis, don't have the starting point, you can't rule out that under your scenario, the vehicle would have gone up on the lawn. You can't rule that out, can you?
I cannot. No. It could've-
Okay. Now let's go to
I mean,
the next topic.
like how did like this dude was like, yeah, it could have gone to the moon, but like it definitely didn't go into the yard. At least he finally got him to say, no, I can't rule that out because it's, in this dude's opinion, as equally likely as flying to the moon or shooting off into space, which is just, again, let's keep this in mind as we head into the defendant's case in chief and their first witness and just what the jury must be thinking.
If we could, Your Honor, have Exhibit 168 published in evidence, which is now under the 167. Now, as I understand your testimony, Dr. Welcher, you believe that it's possible that the Lexus taillight could have caused these wounds to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm. Is that correct?
Correct.
And more specifically, it's your belief that the lacerations would have been caused by the vehicle scratching Mr. O'Keefe's arm as it drives past him. Is that correct?
I don't know. I characterize it that way. What happens is, the 6,000-pound vehicle is coming, and he's standing on a, icy, snowy roadway area, and it's going to contact him and move his whole
So now the weather does matter again. Icy, snowy roadway area. It's wild to me. It's wild.
body and induce rotation.
Right. So it's going to contact him and, under your theory, induce rotation. So wouldn't such a movement of the car relative to his right arm result in horizontal injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's arm, as can be seen on his bicep above the elbow?
So could we pull up one of my slides to address this issue?
I don't even know what to call it. You can't, I guess you could object for a lot of reasons, but in terms of your standard objections, non-responsive, there is a question pending. This is crazy.
Sure.
I'd like to answer your question with a slide that I have that addresses this exact point.
I'd like to stay with this slide, Dr. Welcher, and see if you can answer my questions off of this slide. So I'll repeat it.
Sure.
Do you agree that the injuries up at the upper part, where you're familiar with the bicep brachialis?
I am.
And aren't those two up at the top, right over the bicep brachialis?
They're actually about midway between the biceps and the triceps.
Right. So you know which two I'm talking about, the two up there. Can you just use your laser pointer just so we're talking about the same two? Do you have one?
I'll give it a try, but the upper ones.
I know it's not your fault, but
On the
sometimes it
image,
doesn't.
the upper left.
Yes.
Technically the ones right to the right of that are also on the biceps and triceps.
Right, but
the
I'm talking-
biceps goes all the way to the elbow, so do the triceps.
Right. So I'm talking about the two that are the farthest up.
Correct.
All right. Would you agree that those are in a horizontal orientation?
Generally, yes, which is what you'd expect with your arm like this and the tail light coming across like this, which is what I showed in my slides.
My questions are trying to keep this moving. I just asked if those are in a horizontal orientation.
Yeah,
Yes
more
or
or
no?
less. They're angled down slightly, but more or less horizontal.
Okay. Isn't it true that if Mr. O'Keefe's arm were to be flexed like it was with the test subject in your blue paint test, the lacerations on
Test
Mr.
subject.
O'Keefe's forearm would be oriented in a vertical direction?
Absolutely not. If you pull up my slide 117, it'll show exactly that it is like perfectly horizontal. When you're standing like this,
Dude, what a fucking idiot! Because those the lacerations are on the bottom part of the arm,
and this is the tail
like
light,
the elbow.
the laceration, when it comes across here and pushes my body, it's going to make a horizontal laceration
What is
because
wrong
a
with
6,000-pound vehicle is going to push me out of the way. As this pushes me out of the way, it's going to drag and create a horizontal laceration across my arm. This is exactly what you'd expect.
So let's talk about the forearm, sir. We may have miscommunicated.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the
he's showing
lacerations
the
on
wrong part of the arm. It's insane.
Mr. O'Keefe's forearm now.
So we're switching from the arm to the forearm.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Wouldn't those
Fuck's sake.
be oriented in a vertical direction?
No. Again, you have the vehicle.
Oh my
If,
god!
if this is me and this is the car, it's pushing across like this.
What? I didn't see this. I was probably listening, but didn't see it. I didn't know. Wow.
And you have the vehicle. If this is me and this is the car, it's pushing across like this. And with your arm bent like this, it's going to cause
Oh my
laceration as it pushes my arm away. It pushes like that.
Okay, I
And
got
my slide shows this quite clearly.
That
So
makes
you
sense.
disagree. You do not agree that the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's forearm, under your theory, would be oriented in a vertical. You disagree with that. It's just want to get that on the record.
I disagree with
Okay. Now, also, do you understand that under your theory of injury here, that there would be injuries caused in two different directions by the same movement of the car? Agree or disagree?
Oh boy.
I'm going to say I disagree. You need to give me a little more. You're going to
He's like, I'm gonna say I disagree because like that's the default, but I don't really know. I don't have enough information to answer the question, but assume I disagree. That's what he's saying. He's like, assume I disagree.
have, again, this is a glancing or a clipping type impact. And so it's going to be it's going to sweep across the arm, which is what causes the horizontal laceration.
We're talking about a flat surface, right, sir?
Approximately, yes.
And therefore, you would have to maintain contact with the arm as the car moves. Am I correct about that?
Maintain contact with the arm. I'm unclear what you mean.
His literal demonstration that he just did when he stood up is exactly this. That they would have to be moving together in tandem.
What I'm trying to do, sir, is to get under your theory,
Mhm.
right? Given the contact that you've described, what would you expect to be the
demonstrated.
orientation of the wounds to the upper part of the arm and to the lower part of the arm?
Just like it's shown in this photograph.
Okay.
I think Alessi could have done better there by actually referencing the demonstration he just did. Because when he just stood up and demonstrated it, he demonstrated them moving together in the same direction. And that would have been a better way to handle that. I mean,
Isn't it the case with your theory that the tail light would have to break? And after the break, the arm would have to maintain contact with the arm as the car moves.
So that is what happens in pedestrian contacts. There is a contact duration. For example, you asked me earlier in that calculation you had me ran, you said 0.01 seconds. That was the contact duration. So when you have things like this, that's why you have to allow, if you do testing, the body to move, because the car is going to hit the body. It's going to cause it to move. The body's going to rotate away, and the car is going to continue on in that clipping type impact. So the arm is definitely in contact with the rear of the car for some time.
That's what I wanted to get to, is simply that under your theory, the tail light would break, and also the arm would need to maintain contact with the tail light area as the car moves. Is that your supposition?
So at a point in time, it'll stop contact, but the 6,000-pound vehicle is going to want to continue moving on. It's going to push. It's going to initially contact the arm and then push the arm away as it rotates the body. So yes, it's going to make
away from it. What is wrong with this dude? It would push it. It pushes it away. So the opposite, right? It goes in the other direction. Honestly, the pirouette is way more likely, I think, just from reality's sake, than him moving with the car as it goes along, like as if he's stuck to it, like that. Like that part of his arm has some sort of like super glue that we haven't even invented yet, or yeah, I mean, can you guys picture what I'm picturing? That the vehicle backs it, like imagining what he's saying, a Lexus or a vehicle backs in, hits him in the arm, and then they move along together.
Maintain contact until the clipping is over and the vehicle continues on.
So my next question is simply, how long do you believe the arm needs to maintain contact with the taillight after, under your theory, it breaks to produce those types of wounds that you say came from a taillight?
We don't have enough information to determine that.
Right. You don't have enough information to make that determination, do you, sir?
Correct. But we know because of the laws of physics that it has to be some amount of time. It
Objection, no question pending. He already answered it.
doesn't occur instantaneously.
So now we do apply the laws of physics to the right arm that weren't applied before because you applied a paint experiment. Is that correct? You're now applying the laws of physics to the injury to the right arm. Because you didn't
No.
do that in your report.
Nope, always apply the laws of physics. The paint experiment, as you're referring to it, was to look at basically the orientation of the scratches that matched this. So that was an engineering experiment to correlate height, position of the taillight relative to height, orientation of the lacerations on Mr. O'Keefe's arm.
You just said, sir, if I heard you correctly, you, to answer my previous question, applied the laws of physics. That's what you just said, correct?
So the laws of physics cover more than Newton's second law. There's a whole law of physics. The whole field of physics is a broad subject. So a simple measurement of height is a physical measurement.
Oh, right.
Sir, I have your entire...
Why does he say measurement?
Measurement of height is a physical measurement.
Sir, I have your entire report in my hand, right here. Where in the report do you apply the law of physics to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe? Where?
So in the paint experiment we did, the laws of physics about gravity, orientation, things like that, I didn't apply Newton's second law, as we already went through. But again, those simple position arm angles, the possible physical arm angles, those are all generally governed by the laws of physics. The laws of physics are very broad.
Sir, I'll ask it this way. Where in your 14-page report do you even mention the laws of physics related to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe?
So in terms of applying the laws of physics,
I'm not asking applying, just where in the report is it mentioned law of physics relative to the right arm? Can you point me to where?
would write a report that said, these are the laws of physics. I would say, these are the numbers. But for example, the
Oh my God.
timing in GPS, how a clock times, the concept of a second. What does that mean? Those are all concepts of physics. So the timing, the GPS, the mileage, how we calculate the mileage, those are all based on the laws of physics.
I'm talking about injuries to the right arm.
It's not what you asked. You asked me about my whole report.
Sir, if you could, please, I
Oh my God.
just need to finish my question. Where in your report do you use any laws of physics in connection with injuries to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe? Can you point me to a word or a page in your report?
Yes.
Where?
2A, 2A Roman numeral 1, 2A Roman numeral 2, 2A Roman numeral 3, 2A Roman numeral number 4, 2A Roman numeral number 5.
Sir, I followed all of it, but what I'm asking about is where in all of what you just mentioned is the word right arm?
Uh-huh.
I'll take what you just said. Where in 2A and all of those is the word right arm? Where is it?
Oh, sorry, it's in number 3.
So let's go to 3. You state the location and orientation of the laceration on John O'Keefe's right forearm and right arm are consistent with the geometry and orientation of the right tail light of the Reed 2021 Lexus LX 570. Where?
Can you read the next sentence?
I'm sorry. Is it C PowerPoint slides 102, 120, correct?
Correct.
All right. I want to just start with the report. Did you apply any force analysis to support 3?
So in terms of the force analysis, I did not do an F equal MA analysis, but in terms of, say, the contact pattern, I obviously had to apply some force, even at 2 miles an hour, to do that.
So the answer is, what you cited, number 3, you did not use a force analysis, correct?
So force was applied to my arm in the paint test. I didn't do an F equals MA force analysis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And he
So
also,
now let's go to the
he also didn't say the words right arm.
horizontal movement we were talking about with regard
This
to
dude is like, literally, it says the words right arm right there, and then he reads it. It doesn't say right arm. It's just crazy.
the car. And you can agree or disagree.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, we'll take that down. Thank you. Do you agree or disagree that given a horizontal movement of the car, vertical lacerations would be an inconsistent injury pattern?
So horizontal motion
Oh my God.
generally will cause a horizontal laceration. You can get what are called stellate, which are blunt force, and it causes a splitting of the skin as well. But generally, when the vehicle is clipping or running horizontal across it, it will generally cause horizontal lacerations. But when you have a fractured taillight, you can get pieces going off in other directions. So it's not necessarily going to be perfectly horizontal.
So my question is, not with clipping, you keep inserting clipping into my question. My question is this. If you're given a horizontal movement of the car, do you agree that it's more likely than not that vertical lacerations would be an inconsistent jury pattern?
I'm trying to help you, but you got to give me more. So,
Oh my god. Oh my god. See, Alessi's strategy across that's usually so effective with like every witness except for this one being so methodical and just like laid out. Like he's been trying to lay the foundation. It's like for 20 minutes, it's like trying to lay the foundation to get the most basic and simple of things to try to even like get to the final questions. And it's like the struggle even just to lay that foundation. It takes so long. And it's like, this is what makes him so effective with every other witness is exactly what makes this so brutal to see, right? Because this dude's not going to give him that first piece. And on top of it, again, this whole thing of like, I don't know what the word is. I mean, just so condescending. I mean, that's an understatement. I don't know, man.
Inconsistent jury pattern.
I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. What?
Help you, but you got to give me more. So, like, is it a clipping contact or is it not a clipping contact?
Wow.
Is it a direct in the center of the car impact?
Okay. Are there only two variables you need to answer the question?
But this is a good start.
All right. So let me do it this way. You can't answer the question on a general basis of whether there's horizontal movement of a car, whether vertical lacerations would be an inconsistent injury pattern. You can't answer that question without more information. Is that your answer?
So generally, again, horizontal motion should cause horizontal lacerations, but again, it depends on what's being hit. Okay. So for example, if I have something that bends as a result of the impact, it could bend up and create a vertical laceration.
So you would agree, based upon what you said, that generally horizontal movement of a car would be expected to cause horizontal lacerations.
Generally.
Okay. Now, during your blue paint test, the blue paint was featured more predominantly on your upper arm than your forearm. Is that correct?
I think it depends on the test.
Do you want?
It totally wasn't, which is ridiculous because that's not where the lacerations are.
Bring up a slide. Will that help you?
Bring up a slide.
We're going to be running the thing, so we'll just bring one up and you tell me whether this slide works for you, sir.
Do you want me to tell you the slide I want?
If we could take a shot at it first, and then we may ask you for it. But I think we've got a slide for you. And what number? 111 is on the screen, sir. Is the blue paint more predominantly on your upper arm than your forearm? Is there more blue paint on your upper arm than your forearm?
Probably. This is the one where I actually walked sideways into the back of the car. The one where the car's moving is probably a little better representation.
Sir, I'm just asking you a question about this slide. If you could just focus on this slide here, and if you can't answer it, so be it.
I just answered it.
Is the blue paint featured more predominantly on your upper arm than your forearm?
It sort of looked like it. I didn't actually measure the total area of it.
All right. So on direct, you stated that in order for the injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's forearm to have been caused by an impact with the taillight, his arm would have needed
face the whole time too, right? Let me move these. His face the whole time is just this look of like, what is like? It's just wild. He tries to look. It's like he's trying to. His face this entire time. It's like he's trying to look at Mr. Alessi like he's just seen an inside-out alien or something. Like. It's just crazy. To maintain that for the entire cross exam is bizarre.
To be held outstretched as you did in your demonstration, correct?
You would need some degree of outstretch, yes.
Yes. So isn't that an example of confirmation bias?
No, that's matching the contact pattern to the injuries.
But don't you have to select among other choices this outstretching of the arm? You had to make that selection from among others, correct?
So that was matching the physical evidence on his arm to the physical evidence on the car, and then running a test to see if dynamically those matched up. So it's, I didn't have it hit the exhaust pipe, for example, because there was no assertion to hit the exhaust pipe. There was no damage to the exhaust pipe. So it was based upon the evidence, and the testing was done to test, to use your vernacular, the hypothesis that that's where it came from.
Sir, have I ever asked you anything about a tailpipe in any of my questions today?
Yes.
I have not. I've never
Yes,
asked.
you have. You asked me about the totality of the rear of the Lexus, which includes the tailpipe.
Non-responsive.
I am not going to be asking any questions that involve the taillight in any fashion. So what I'd like to do is to go back to the question that I'm asking, which is, did you consider, as part of the scientific method, in terms of more than one hypothesis, did you consider in your analysis any other orientation of Mr. O'Keefe other than the one you selected for your paint test?
Yes.
And where is that consideration of other hypotheses stated in any report?
It's not. I was just looking at the damage that was up on the sheet metal.
Okay. So are you saying that you considered other orientations of Mr. O'Keefe relative to the vehicle as part of your analysis?
In terms of where exactly the hand would be, some slight different angles in the forearm, which is from the elbow to the hand. I did consider that, but all the physical testing is done with the hand hitting the approximate center of the taillight.
Do you have any notes that you took for these alternative orientations?
No, I think I just included photographs of that damage.
You haven't included all, but you considered those other orientations. Anything right?
No, I don't believe so.
Did you consider any other locations of Mr. O'Keefe under your theory relative to the back of the SUV?
Sure. In the beginning of this, I started about, hey, it's all over. It could be anywhere on the back of it. Then whittled it down based upon the evidence, started eliminating various hypotheses based upon the evidence, and came to this conclusion, eliminating hypotheses based upon the taillight fragments near his body, the lacerations, his height, the height of.
We'll keep that in mind because he's going to contradict himself on day 23 from yesterday. He's saying he started with one hypothesis. Let me back it up so you guys can hear it because it's going to come up.
Oh, you considered those other orientations. Anything right?
No, I don't believe so.
Did you consider any other locations of Mr. O'Keefe under your theory relative to the back of the SUV?
Sure. In the beginning of this, I started about, hey, it's all over. It could be anywhere on the back of it. Then
At the beginning, I started could be anywhere on the back of it, as in already with the assumption that there's a collision, right? At the beginning, I started it could be anywhere on the back of it, on the back of the Lexus. Keep that in mind.
whittled it down based upon the evidence, started eliminating various hypotheses based upon the evidence, and came to this conclusion, eliminating hypotheses based upon the taillight fragments near his body, the lacerations, his height, the height of the taillight in a Lexus. So it was an iterative process.
Did you mention any of these supposed hypotheses in your direct testimony?
No, because I was able to reject them. I didn't come in here to tell these people what didn't happen. I came in here to tell them what I believe happened.
Did you agree, sir, that the scientific
Which is hilarious because, like, how many times has he said, we don't have enough information to determine that? We don't know how he was standing. We don't know this. We don't know that. I mean, it's just wild to me.
method earlier has the scientist identify various hypotheses, go with the data that supports it, but you show your math as to why you're rejecting hypotheses. As you said, you rejected them. I'm asking for proof that you considered other hypotheses. Do you have anything in writing, any notes at all, any videos, any tests that you did, documentation of other hypotheses other than picking this one? Do you have any documentation of that?
So I did a bunch of tests with the Lexus. I did backing tests. I looked at how the rear system worked to see if it would autonomously brake. I confirmed it did not. So I eliminated that as a hypothesis. I tested the steering. I tested the transmission, what 1, 2 represented. So I did a whole bunch of tests on the vehicle.
I understand you say you did a bunch of tests on the vehicle. My question is, did you ever take the vehicle and position yourself or anybody else in various locations to determine whether or not your hypotheses could be properly rejected? Do you have any documentation that you did that?
I mean, I did do 1 static and 2 dynamic tests in very similar positions, though. So I did a total of 3 tests relative
He's asking if you have any proof that you did it or any documentation. The non-responsive.
to the arm.
Where's the documentation for that?
Right.
It's in the file. I gave it to you. Some of the slides are some of it.
All right, so Mr. Alessi, I think if we're going to,
I'm going to move on, Your Honor.
So
okay, but Mr. Alessi, hold on, we're going to do that for you.
Can I ask, I just have one other area, Your Honor. I can do it in short order if I could, please.
I wasn't finished my.
Go ahead, finish your answer.
So slides
Oh my
109, 110, 111,
Him time.
actually through, I guess, 121 deal with the testing of the hypothesis.
We'll come back to this at another time, Dr. Welcher. So what I want to do is to finish up on this point. So is it your testimony that no part of what you did in selecting this area, no part of it is confirmation bias? You say there's no confirmation bias at all in what you did. Is that your testimony?
That's certainly my goal. I try and eliminate all confirmational bias. I didn't start out at this particular location. This is where the physical evidence led me to. So I would say the conclusions are supported by the science.
My question is, did you engage in any confirmation? This will be my last question. Did
The
you
answer is no.
engage in any confirmation bias in terms of how you approach the issue that you have testified about in written reports?
The answer is still no.
It's a good
All right,
committee.
so, okay, thank you. All right, so jurors, we're going to send you home because we still have work to do here. We don't need you waiting there while we do it inside house. So tomorrow is a half day. We'll see when exactly that half day ends, but we won't be here until, we won't go until 4 tomorrow. Those 3 cautions: do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent
All right.
research or investigation into this
We're
case.
gonna
Be
use
very
what
careful
here?
with the social media use. See you tomorrow.
Press the jury.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Alessi, it's your voir dire.
If I have a moment, Your Honor, to switch.
Can I load my slides?
Oh my God.
Yeah, can you do that while you're sitting here answering questions? Yes.
I think part of what Dr. Welcher tries to do here is make it seem like if they don't let him have his computer open at all times, it's only going to make it harder for the court because he's going to make it take like forever. And I think he does this the next day too. Like whenever it's like, can I pull this thing up? And it's like, oh, well, it'll take a year to load and shit like that. I think he's trying to, I think his goal was to try to he was hoping that they would just let him, they being the court, just keep it out because like, for fuck's sake, like it's taking too long. Just keep it open so it doesn't have to take time to reboot and all that. You guys will see. It's just wild. Where is we have a workout?
I'm okay, Your Honor.
Okay, what here?
Mr. Wolk, with Your Honor's permission, if we could pull up the January 30th, 2025 PowerPoint of Dr. Welcher in slide 36. You see that, Dr. Welcher? Do you recall that from your January 30th, 2025 PowerPoint?
I thought I had replaced the video on the left-hand side by the time I produced it.
Sir, I got to
don't
go
recall
through this quickly, Mike. That image is a drone image on the left, correct?
Oh, correct,
And you had that in your original report, but you removed it in subsequent reports, correct?
correct.
Where did you get that drone image from?
It was in the file.
Wasn't it in the CARS report of Trooper Paul?
I believe it was.
So you took that drone image from the CARS report of Trooper Paul, correct?
Correct.
Let's, if we could, Mr. Woke, go to diagram 1. Do we have that electronically of Trooper Paul's report? Do you recognize that as diagram 1 from Trooper Paul's report?
Yes.
So, and that's the diagram that you took that image and you put it in your January 30th, 2025 PowerPoint, correct?
Pulling up my version of PowerPoint.
Yes. Pulling it up.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, if we could take that down, I'm going to go to the next example. We could go to Dr. Welcher.
I'm sorry, actually, can we go back to that?
Yes. With, Your Honor, why do we?
Well,
I have limited. Go ahead.
so that particular diagram I did not use. If you notice, the diagram I used has different cars and doesn't have all the writing about the position of things on it.
I am going to now, Your Honor, have to take the time to go to Trooper Paul's report. We have a hard copy of Trooper Paul's.
Could you turn the lights on, please?
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going
Show
to.
Mr. Brennan.
Yes, Mr. Brennan. This is. May I approach your witness?
That's what I do.
Holding something showing signature.
Oh my God.
You want to look at the report? So I'm not so sure there is a signature on the report.
And Mr. Leslie, she's like rushing at you. And this is really disgusting.
Signature block right here.
This whole time, she's like, you got to make this quick. And he's like, I've got limited time. And then,
Yes, Trooper Paul, page 16.
I have that.
Yes.
Now, what I want to do is to go to diagram 1. And if I could, Your Honor, republish what was just up. I'm showing you diagram 1, sir, and I'm asking you, is that the image from Trooper Paul's report that you then used to put into your January 30th slide presentation?
No, see all the writing on here, the glass top, all the dimensions here. Here's my January 30th one. None of that stuff's here. There's different. None of this stuff is here.
Isn't it the case that this is cropped more and there's a larger picture of the same image or not?
See this tree?
Yes.
See these trees?
Yes.
See all these measurements by the trees? All
Yes.
these? That's right here.
Okay.
Those do not show up on my image.
Let me go to a different method then to do this. You have an image. Can we go, Mr. Wolf, to the January 30th presentation?
Slide 36.
Correct. Where did you get that image from that's in your PowerPoint presentation on the left?
I think it was from the file, satellite image from the file.
What part of the file?
Right.
I actually don't know at this time.
How close is the image on diagram 1, the drone image, to the image that you can't now recall where you got it from for your slide presentation? Are they similar?
So that one has a whole bunch of measurements and ID on it, but the underlying image is very similar. It's probably the same one.
That's the thing.
Do you know of any other place you could have, let's put the presentation back up on the slide presentation. Do you know of any other location other than Trooper Paul's report that you could have got that drone image from?
No, I'm not sure I got it from the report. I recall getting it from the file.
My question is, do you know of any other source other than Trooper Paul's report that you could have gotten that drone image from?
So this image is not in that report.
It's not
Yes, it is. You asked me anything but the report. That image is not in that report.
Did you get the drone image from any file from the Massachusetts State Police?
Yes.
Okay. Did Trooper Paul
Oh my God.
work on any drone images to your knowledge with respect to 34 Fairview?
I don't know.
But you would agree that the drone images are from the Massachusetts State Police file, correct?
Give me one second.
No, you can't have a second.
So let me know you've had a fair opportunity to answer that question.
Right?
Give me a second.
Oh my God. I think he's
Yes,
probably
it came in a file called cars-trp.jopal.
Okay.
oh
So
my
it came-
God.
and that's the report of Trooper Paul, correct?
No, these are drone images that are not in the report.
No, I'm saying what you just read. Can you repeat it again, what you just read, where it came from?
I read you a folder
Yes.
that contains a bunch of
Fuck's
things,
sake.
including the report.
Understood.
That image is not in his report.
Can you read the file name again that you just read?
The folder name,
Yes.
Answer the
is-
question.
cars-trp.jopal.
Okay. And did you get the drone image from that file folder?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now let's go on to the May 26, 2025 PowerPoint that you created. And I'd like to go to slides 25, 26, and 27. Have you discussed with anybody today at all the source of what is depicted up on this slide?
No.
Okay, so let's now go to where did you get you see the larger chart to the left there in the, looks like mostly a rectangle. Do you see that, sir?
What slide are you on? What slide is that?
I feel like I'm like, is he going to be like, that's not a rectangle? I mean,
25, I believe.
Probably.
Okay, and then if we could click to 26, because it looks like it's the same. If we can go to 26 and 27, looks like it's the same one. You tell me.
It's similar.
Similar, okay.
Yeah.
In 27.
Correct.
See the same or similar one there? Okay.
These are all from Google Maps.
Well, my question is, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, let me ask you this, so I don't have to keep going back and forth. Do you have access, sir, to the cars report of Trooper Paul on your computer?
Think so? You remember the name of it?
I don't. We'll do it with a hard copy. Mr. Governor, I'd like to show this one. Thank you. So, if I could, approach, Your Honor?
Yep.
So, you see what I'm pointing to right here, which is page 10 of Trooper Paul's cars report. Do you see that?
Is this the same report? It's dated 1/29/2022?
I believe so, sir. Let me just take a peek. This is, you can just compare this to the one I got in my hand. Take it and look for any identification that gives you, right? We got the same one.
Yeah, mine's.
Okay.
So that's in favor.
Okay, so we have that report, and I now am referencing page 10 of that report, and I'm looking at the chart on page 10. Is that chart on page 10 the same or substantially the same as the chart that is up on your slide presentation right now?
So it's not the same. I did not use this data at all, but we both use Google Maps.
Okay, all right. Now let's go to your, continuing on the same slide, if Mr. Woke, we go to slides 22 and 23.
Okay, and this will be the last on this, Mr. Alessi. If you want to get to the autopsy photo, we're wrapping this all up at 4:10.
Okay, Your Honor. You see these photos?
I'm sorry.
You see the photos that are up on that?
I do.
Okay. Do you, in terms of those photos, do you recognize any aspect of those photos?
Yes.
What do you recognize in terms of the person in it?
Oh, you want me to limit it to just these three photos?
Any photo that would be this photo or any photo similar to it. But let's start with just these three.
If I have to limit it to these three, I don't know who that is.
Okay, and if you don't limit it to those three, who would you conclude it is in those photos?
It appears to be Trooper Paul from other photos.
Okay, so you can tell from other photos that this is Trooper Paul in these photos, correct?
I have photos of Trooper Paul in the car. I don't know that someone else switched out. I have no reason to believe this isn't anybody but Trooper Paul.
Okay. Would you have any understanding that there's any other trooper that would be doing this type of analysis other than Trooper Paul?
Someone else took the photographs?
No, I'm talking inside the vehicle.
I'm sorry?
Inside the vehicle doing what's depicted here.
Someone's inside the vehicle taking the photograph.
What's your best conclusion as to who that is?
Trooper Paul.
Thank you. Your Honor, that is,
Okay, so next topic.
yes,
Go right
thank you.
ahead.
And I just need to read load, if you will, with regard to that topic. If you could, if Your Honor, you can go to slide, and I think I can do this fairly quickly.
Okay.
If you can go, Mr. Woke, to slide 131 of Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint presentation, and it's now 132. I don't believe that's the right one. It's the,
One before that.
I think you're, yeah, okay. So this is slide 131 from your slide presentation, correct, sir?
Correct.
And if you look to the far right, I'm sorry, Mr. Woke, you go to the other one. Yes, that one, and scroll down so we can see what's in green. For that depiction, that is from Dr. Scorty Bellow's autopsy report, page 3, correct? Is that where you got that from?
It's from the report. Take your word for it on page 3.
So, but it is from Dr. Scorty Bellow's autopsy report, correct?
Correct.
Now, if you could go to, if we could zoom back out and go to the multicolored image in the center, up at the top. Yeah, just go straight back there. Yep, thank you. If you can go to the very top line, it says autopsy report performed by Irene Scorty Bellow, MD, PhD. If you can scroll back over, date of autopsy, January 31, 2022, and then you see final diagnoses. That is all directly from the autopsy report, is it not, sir?
Yes.
And that is in your slide presentation, correct, sir? This is page 131 of your slide presentation, correct?
Correct.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, you are all set, Doctor?
Thank you, Ron.
All right. Oh, did you have any questions, Mr. Brennan?
If it'd be helpful to go ahead, a couple quickly.
Okay.
Thank you, kind of 2 minutes.
Dr. Welcher, you were shown a photograph of the street of Fairview Road. Did you know that didn't come from Trooper Paul? It came from the CERT report, and Trooper Paul then took it from the CERT report and put it in separately in his presentation. Did you know that?
I had no idea. I just was given it as a folder.
And the photo you were using, it didn't have the markings that Trooper Paul put on his report, did it?
It did not.
When you used that photo, was it because you were borrowing, relying on, or using any of Trooper Paul's reports for your conclusions or any of your decisions or analysis in this case?
I did not use his report at
It
all.
was simply limited to the use of the photo to show a different demonstrative issue.
Correct.
And then when you saw diagram 1, again, that was different than what was used in Trooper Paul's report because it had absent in it all the writing. Isn't that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Did you rely on Trooper Paul's analysis or conclusions in this case for your conclusions and your analysis?
Not at all.
Is that why you went and downloaded the information, looked at the car, and did everything individually, separately, and uniquely from Trooper Paul?
I wanted to be independent in my analysis.
Regarding Dr. Scortabello, did you ever consider her conclusions regarding manner or cause of death as a basis for your analysis and conclusions?
Yes.
And when you considered her analysis, did you consider the conclusion of undetermined cause of death? Was that part of your analysis?
Oh, no. I was using like the skull fractures, the description of the injuries.
So you were considering the information in her autopsy report?
Correct.
How about her conclusions? Did you rely on her conclusions to do your studies or any analysis in this case as far as cause of death or manner of death?
Only I thought I said blunt force trauma and hypothermia.
Okay. Regarding her conclusions about whether this was caused by a car accident or not, did you
No,
consider that as the
no.
basis of your opinion?
No, I wouldn't take a person like that's opinion for that.
Did you ever have a conversation with Dr. Scortabello about her expertise limitations?
I love how he's now changed Dr. Scortabello. It's now Brennan says Dr. Scortabello. It's just like, what the fuck? Why can't he say anyone's name right?
No, I would want a biomechanical analysis.
Was your opinion regarding the collision in this case, it had anything to do whatsoever with Dr. Scortabello's conclusions regarding cause of death, whether it was accident, undetermined, or homicide?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Your Honor.
All right, one question. Can we just wrap it up? I'd like to hear you argue, but we don't have time, so I'm just gonna,
I have
Decision.
two questions, Your Honor. You put
And is
in
that-
your slide presentation.
The sad dude, he laughs. The sad thing is it doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter. She's gonna side with the Commonwealth. It's disgusting.
Information from the autopsy report of Dr. Scorty Bellow for a reason, correct, sir? And that reason is because you considered the autopsy report as part of your analysis, correct?
So I considered portions, which are the portions I included here for the autopsy report.
And part of those considerations were the final diagnoses. We put that back up, Mr. Woke. But you recall the slide that you had has the final diagnoses of Dr. Scorty Bellow, and you put that in your slide presentation because you considered that as part of your analysis, else it wouldn't be in there, correct?
So the final diagnosis is in there. There's a line, then it says cause of death, and then manner of death. The things I highlighted are the things I thought were important. So the highlighting on slide 130. So the final diagnosis, again, does not include cause of death. It does not include manner of death. There's that horizontal line demarcating those. The important things that I was looking at are the under or highlighted, which is why I highlighted them,
Exactly. So the ones that you highlighted, you considered are from the autopsy report. That's why you're highlighting them, right, sir? You considered them.
Correct.
Thank you. No questions, Your Honor. I
All
appreciate
right.
that.
So I'm not going to let you argue now. I'll hear you very briefly tomorrow before we stop. But Mr. Alessi, how much longer are you going to be tomorrow?
It's disgusting. I'll hear you very briefly just to try and make it look like I heard your argument, but it doesn't matter because I'm already know how I'm going to roll. Oh, and meanwhile, while I'm at it, how much longer are you going to be on your cross exam?
Yes.
How mad she looks. It's like, what? This is after she gave the Commonwealth a 5-day break because they didn't have a witness that they wanted to put on when, and not only that, right? I mean, you guys have heard me rant about this enough, but like all the number of times where they end early. They end early. We're going to give you the day off, jury. We're way ahead. You're going to get the day off. We're going to only do half day. We're way ahead of schedule, Only when it's the Commonwealth, though. Jesus. Hi, Flash.
I'm about halfway through, Your Honor. I think we'll take up a little more tomorrow. If we can get the things quicker, I would like to do that. If we get it today, that's my best estimate.
So we're half a day tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
So it may be that we have a 20-minute break tomorrow and we finish up by 1:30 by going straight through. We've got a juror who has an appointment that we told her she'd be able to make. So I'd like to do everything we can so that Dr. Welcher doesn't have to come back or stay here another day. So let's just see what we can do, and we will do the same thing for your experts as well.
No, I understand, Your Honor, and I respect everything that Your Honor is saying.
Saying in so many words is, I want you to be as quick as possible with your cross, which is a violation of the Sixth Amendment right.
I'll say, Your Honor, to state the obvious, this is a key aspect of the case, and we've got to be able to proceed through the questions. He covered a lot on his strategy.
And I'm not asking you to curb it. I'm just hoping that we can do.
Lord, I don't even have the words. I'm not asking you to curb it. Yeah, she knows that's problematic, but she literally is. Listen, you guys.
Everything that Your Honor is saying, I must say, Your Honor, to state the obvious, this is a key aspect of the case, and we've got to be able to proceed through the questions. He covered a lot on his strategy.
And I'm not asking you to curb it. I'm just hoping that we can do it. So I will.
Disgusting.
We'll ask you tomorrow at a certain time to see whether we're able to do it with the 20-minute break and finish.
Fair enough, Your Honor.
Okay.
My answer is at that particular point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, so going
Thank you, Dr. Welcher.
I think part of the reason why, well, besides her being biased, why she rules the way she does and immediately the next day is because she knows that if she rules the way that she ends up ruling, it'll be a shorter cross. When he gave that estimation, okay, this defense team knows this judge. Just keep this in mind. When she asked him how much time he had, like he says he's about halfway done, that means he thought there was going to be a substantial amount of cross-examination left. Why did he answer that question that way? Because I think that even with knowing how biased she is, I think that the defense team was positive there was no way she wouldn't let in these other lines of questioning as regards to at least the Trooper Paul bit, right? Like, in other words, that estimate was with like the assumption that they would be able to get into these other lines of questioning because it's like it goes without saying. But she's going to shock everybody else. I don't know. Sadly, I hate to say it. Like, it's shocking, but it's also not shocking because at this point you should expect it, right? So let's get into day 23 and hear what she says. And her ruling is going to be part of the reason why his cross-examination allows her to finish up on the half day the way she wanted.
Now open the meeting.
All right. Good morning,
The
counsel.
Lord knows that she's only made the defense experts come back and forth and back and
Good
forth
morning, Ms. Reed.
for a million voir dires and all that, right? She doesn't.
And all right, Mr. Alessi, I will hear you on your argument on the voir dire.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm just loading up my
We're
computer.
having a good night. We love you, Flash. This is just gross. I'll hear you. But she
Your
doesn't
Honor,
listen. She doesn't listen. She doesn't care. It would have honestly have pissed me off less if she came in without hearing them and just walked in and just made her ruling. Because literally, it's more offensive to me that she tries to at least pretend. That's more offensive to me that she's like, actually like, oh, I'll hear your argument. It's like, she had her mind made up yesterday. It's just disgusting.
I am going to address the Trooper Paul aspect, and then I'm going to address the Dr. Scorti Bello aspect of Dr. Welcher. with regard to Trooper Paul, I would like to draw
If she was actually listening, she wouldn't have ruled the way she did. And here's the thing: when she rules on this, she doesn't even state a single reason. That, from what I recall, except it's like I agree with the Commonwealth or something like that. But she doesn't. She doesn't actually address any of the things that they say. So why bother then even hearing an argument?
the court's attention to the following documents for the straightforward proposition that Dr. Welcher has not only reviewed, he has not only considered, that he has adopted. I went back and looked at the documents, and the basis for this is as follows. Slides 22 and 23 do not just depict Trooper Joseph Paul himself. They show Trooper Paul conducting the CARS analysis on February 1st of 2022. Importantly, these slides highlight the mileage odometer of 12,665, and I respectfully request the court to anchor into that odometer reading, because I'm going to show the path that that odometer reading takes through all of the documents, but I want to emphasize.
This is where it's so sad. I just have to say, Mr. Alessi has had such a difficult witness on the stand for all this, right? On top of that, he's given all of these time restraints. Quickly, wrap it up, whether it's your cross-exam, whether it's your argument, wrap it up quickly, quickly, quickly. Meanwhile, as she's saying that to him, the witness is like, hold on, let me find it, da-da-da, and then like completely non-responses the fuck out of everything and is wasting Mr. Alessi's time. But here's the other saddest thing, that with all of those challenges, he still puts the effort in. He makes a brilliant argument here. He makes a brilliant argument, even with all those challenges. And he does it quickly. He does it within her 5 minutes or whatever the fuck she allows him. He follows all of her rules, even though they don't make any sense and they're not fair. He follows all of the rules. He deals with all of it. And he lays out brilliantly exactly why it would be impossible to not allow this line of questioning about Trooper Paul. He puts the effort in. He puts it in the night before. I mean, who knows? He's probably not sleeping at all.
Emphasize the genesis
And that's a great
of the odometer reading of 12,665 miles is with Trooper Paul as he conducted the CARS analysis on February 1st. Now, here's where Dr. Welcher comes in. Dr. Welcher then uses this key data point, odometer 12,665, as the basis, the starting point for his determination of the locations and times for the events of January 29 of 2022. Dr. Welcher uses his scenario analysis of Ms. Reed's travels, and that's detailed on slides 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28, to calculate and then deduct 36 miles from the odometer, according to Trooper Paul on February 1st of 2022, to arrive at an odometer reading of 12,629, which obviously is different from the anchor I talked about of 12,665. So the assumed odometer of 12,629, again, is based on Trooper Paul's CARS analysis in slides 22 and 23, are then used as a tether, a connection to the events recorded by the VCH and the Lexus on the following slides: 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 35, and 36. I elucidate this and I explicate the slide numbers to show how many there are in Dr. Welcher's report that are rooted in the anchor point and then the change in the deduction of the odometer. So the events memorialized by Trooper Paul on February 1st, including the odometer reading, provide the foundation for Dr. Welcher's entire analysis of the VCH events. The entire analysis of Dr. Welcher's VCH events. That is the adoption aspect of what I started with. 2 more points. In addition, Dr. Welcher testified on his voir dire that the image on the left of slide 36 from his January 30th, 2025 presentation came from a file marked carsj.paul. Now, he did contend that it wasn't the exact same image, but I want to go to this. In fact, the image on slide 36 is from the drone used by Trooper Paul, and the citation for that is page 4, item 11 of the CARS report. That's where the drones are from. Dr. Welcher didn't do any drone activity. He took the drone that he had in his report that was just a little bit different than the one I was showing him. It comes from page 4, item 11 of the CARS report. And I quote, "The crash scene was documented during the on-scene investigation by utilizing Alicia's GNSS GPS mapping system, and a DJI Mavic 2 UAS. This data was input to a computer-aided diagram program, which is IMS 360. Here's the key: to produce a scale diagram of this collision. So the DJI Mavic is the CARS team drone. This image of Dr. Welcher's slide 36 is clearly and indisputably from the drone. And the only drone extant is the drone of Trooper Paul in the CARS team.
Yeah.
Last point with regard to the Trooper Paul basis in adoption of Dr. Welcher. Mr. Brennan asked Dr. Welcher on voir dire if the image from slide 36 actually came from the CERT team, which is simply not true. The CERT team, actually Lieutenant Tully with the CERT team, took about a dozen photos of the taillight in the snow in the dark around 6 p.m. on January 29, 2022. Lieutenant O'Hara said that the CERT team never traveled back to the scene again. So there were very obviously no photos or images taken by the CERT team in the daylight from the drone. And I again refer to slides 22 and slides 23, where Dr. Welcher said it was more likely than not that it was Trooper Paul in those slides, but the point, whether Trooper Paul or not, is completely overwhelmed by what I just argued and presented as specific factual basis for a review, a consideration, and an adoption of the work of Trooper Paul. Unless Your Honor has any questions, I would now move on to Dr. Scorti-Bello. Thank you. Dr. Scorti-Bello will be much shorter.
Wow. I mean, and that was,
Mr. Wolf,
that was so quick, and it's just so sad that with all the considerations and all you have to think about to be a defense attorney in this case, no matter where you are at in trial, you constantly have this thing hanging over your head, which is you have to do this quickly, quicker than you should, with less time than you are allowed by the law. Like every time you argue, if you're a defense attorney in this case, every time you argue, there's like a constant reminder in the back of your mind that constitutional rights are being violated. And yet you have to set that aside and keep arguing, but you're still having to do it within those guidelines from the court, knowing that those very guidelines are violating constitutional rights of your client. And it just blows my mind.
Of the slide of the Dr. Scorti-Bello that was at the end of the slide presentation with her name on it.
Oh, Kat, that's really.
You just get the slide number, please.
After the live stream.
So it is slide 131. I almost know it verbatim, Your Honor, so I will continue. If Ms. Gilman has slide or someone could turn it on. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. So with regard to slide 31, at the very top, and this again is a slide presentation of Dr. Welcher. So up at the very top, and so Dr. Welcher admitted that he not only reviewed the autopsy report, he admitted that he not only considered the autopsy report, he admitted that he adopted it, and I'm going to put adopt in quotes, to the extent that he used it in his slide presentation. And he actually, to show the depth of those three verbs, he's got in orange highlight under final diagnosis, multiple skull fractures, base of skull, and cavallarium. He testified, obviously, about the rear wounds of Mr. O'Keefe. He testified about how he believed those wounds came about, and he cited as corroboration the highlight of multiple skull fractures, base of skull, and cavallarium. It couldn't be any more obvious, his rooting in this document and reliance upon it. Why else would he have it in his slide presentation? And he's got the name of Dr. Scorti-Bello. And frankly, Your Honor, he didn't fight that whatsoever in the questioning of him. Then you go to underneath cause of death, blood impact, injuries of head, and hypothermia. He essentially repeated that on his testimony. And then if we could, Mr. Wolf, just go to the right. And so you've got highlighted head, skull fracture radiating from the right occipital skull and into the right parietal bone, right and left occipital foci, and bilateral anterior foci and orbital plates. Again, the highlighted means something. He's adopting it. And lastly, the depiction of the skull here, I believe that's Dr. Welcher's handwriting. I believe that's his green, the LR, because I've never seen this green highlighting before. And it could also be Dr. Scorti-Bello's. That's another possibility. I'm not sure. But let's assume sort of the most conservative part that it's Dr. Scorti-Bello's. The key part is he's got it in there and he is referencing it. So, Your Honor, the last point really for both of them, and I wanted to save this point because it applies to both. With regard to experts, the law is clear. So I think the easiest part to show what our position here is the adoption. But in it, it's clearly shown. Adoption doesn't mean you have to agree with it. You just have to put your expert hands around it, wrestle with it, deal with it. And there is no rule of law that I'm aware of that says you can't question an expert witness unless it's something that the expert witness agrees with.
Right.
If the expert witness
Great
has
point.
reviewed it and considered it, and especially if they've rejected it. The easiest is obviously reviewed, considered, and adopted, but it's certainly permissible and important to a defendant's constitutional right, Sixth Amendment to cross-examination.
There it is.
If an expert says,
Damn.
or even infers, I reject this, I reject what Trooper Paul did, or I reject what Dr. Scorti-Bello did, that is decision-making of an expert that the attorney has a right to be able to test. Why did you reject it? What was your thought process in rejecting it? And that applies to both Trooper Paul and Dr. Scorti-Bello, because as I understand it, this witness, Dr. Welcher, is not, he says, I'm not relying upon Dr. or Trooper Paul, which is completely false based upon what I just showed. But even if he just rejects it, in addition to what he has done, we have the right to test and get answers as to why he did it. And the same with Dr. Scorti-Bello. Once he goes to this level, Your Honor, I believe it's a straightforward right, especially of a defendant in a criminal trial, and especially of the stakes and the charges this high, that we get to test it. What I think, lastly, my point here, Your Honor, the Commonwealth is doing is this. The Commonwealth knows Trooper Paul and Dr. Scorti-Bello are problematic for their theory and their narrative.
Yeah.
Trooper Paul has got, if you work backwards from his key cycle.
Here's the thing. I almost wonder if, well, again, like I said, she already had her mind made up, but I guarantee you, if she hadn't, hypothetically, I think that making this point, which is true, right? He's correct here, would be the reason she doesn't let it in, because she hates it when you say anything true/negative, but by true, I mean, it's going to be negative about the Commonwealth, right? Like, this is exactly
is doing is this. The Commonwealth knows Trooper Paul
Good
and
night,
Dr.
Mary.
Scorti-Bello are problematic for their theory and their narrative. Trooper Paul has got, if you work backwards from his key cycles, you end up with 1162.2, their key cycle. That ends up being not in front of 34 Fairview, but it ends up when the Lexus is in the possession of the state. That is the result of that. And that was something that was addressed square head on in the first proceeding. We're not coming up with some fanciful ghost in the second trial. This was gone through extensively in the first proceeding. And I understand this is a new trial, but it goes to show it's not something coming out of the blue, et cetera. And with regard to Dr. Scorti-Bello, it was remarkable on the redirect that I've never seen a prosecution essentially go after the opinions and conclusion of their own medical examiner when they basically said, the medical examiner, I can't call this a homicide. The manner of death is undetermined. And the medical examiner says, I don't see any motor vehicle impact injuries. There couldn't be anything more apt, more probative than whether or not the injuries to the decedent are from a motor.
And this is a really great point, because here's the thing. The other thing that the Commonwealth wants the jury to do is disregard the medical examiner and listen to this dude, Jud Welcher, not Mr. Alessi, but listen to Jud Welcher when it comes to essentially the cause and manner of death, right? Essentially. Ignore Scorti-Bello. She doesn't know anything. Disregard her. Remember, they weren't going to call her, ignore her. She doesn't know what she's talking about, and listen to this dude for causation. And of course, the other thing that we can't forget about is Judge Beth made up that rule last year about how if you're not a medical doctor, you can't testify as to causation. And yet she still, to my knowledge, has still denied ARCA that ability, and even has limited, if not fully outright denied, Dr. Russell, who actually is a medical doctor, from making such an opinion. However, she allows Dr. Welcher to do it, and he's not a medical doctor. And I think that's exactly why, besides, again, on top of just being biased in general, right? It's so that the Commonwealth can offer it up as a replacement for the ME. Because the ME didn't help them. The ME helped the defense. It's just...
vehicle. The Dr. Welcher himself is saying they are. That's the essence of his opinion. It's the essence of his test. We get to be able to, respectfully, Your Honor, say, well, wait a minute. You said you looked at the autopsy. You said this. You highlight it. but you're going against the medical examiner on whether there's motor vehicle injuries.
Right there. Yep.
The experts can't, Your Honor, cherry pick and choose from documents. They can't use it as a shield and a sword. They can't put up, for example, Dr. Scordi-Bello's autopsy report, cherry pick things that benefit from them, and they did it on direct. And then all of a sudden on cross, when we want to go and test that, they say, oh, no, you can't do it. Your Honor, this whole argument is absurd. And it's antithetical to the Sixth Amendment. And even if, and this is my last point, even if this were merely a civil case, this would be routine cross-examination against the expert on the side. So in conclusion, Your Honor.
I mean, it's a no-brainer. He's absolutely right. And it's such a no-brainer. He shouldn't even have to be arguing it this vigorously. And again, the sad thing is it's such a no-brainer and he's vigorously arguing it even though he shouldn't have to. And yet we all know where this is going. It's just,
I respectfully request that Ms. Reed and her team be allowed to exercise their constitutional right to cross-examination, the keystone of a defense in a criminal trial, cross-examination, and that they be able to take the shield that the prosecution is trying to put on us and be able to combat the sword that the prosecution has put forward with regard to trying to cherry pick from this information, and that we get to proceed, and we get to proceed undaunted from all the serial objections yesterday that interrupted my cross-examination. Thank you, Your Honor.
well, no, she's not going to. Notice she has never once told Brennan to hurry up, ever.
What arises from the litany of complaints by the defense
Stop it, Brennan.
is that there is no constitutional right to usurp the rules of evidence.
And then he has to say that wrong. Why, Brennan? Tell me why. It's usurp. You freaking.
By the defense is that there is no constitutional right to usurp the rules of evidence. There is no case law, as much as they urge the court and yell out the word case law and constitutional right and Sixth Amendment right. There is no case law to support what they are trying to do. It is a simple endeavor that is clouded by all the rhetoric that they offer. And it is clear, and the court knows what they're trying to do. They're trying to pit the inadmissible opinion of a non-testifying witness against a testifying witness. They have asked Dr. Scordi-Bello what her opinion is. And although it's not consistent with our reading of the case law, they were allowed to introduce that it was an undetermined cause of death or mechanism. That evidence is already in front of the jury, but they can't simply repeat it because it sounds good to them or they think it's helpful.
That's not
Simply
what
because
saying,
a witness
Brennan.
uses a document or looks at it or uses part of an autopsy does not let them regurgitate an opinion that's already in evidence to try to phantom cross-examine an expert.
Oh my God.
Dr. Welcher is clear. He did not rely on Dr. Scordi-Bello's conclusion that this cause of death is undetermined. In fact, as an aside, he said, I wouldn't because she's not qualified for that. And so this is a simple game. Let's pit one witness against the other and suggest that the Commonwealth's witnesses are inconsistent. They take it a step further. They want to relive what they think is their past success last year in this case without actually calling the witness. They want the jury to hear their perspective that a past witness had confusion in his analysis, but they don't want to call the witness.
That's not what
they want you to allow them to do that, not just shouting it out and have sustained objections, which has happened this entire case, but they actually want you to be able to allow them to ask Dr. Welcher these questions, which he did not rely on. We had a voir dire. He was clear.
Why do you presume to be able to mind read, though?
He did not rely on the analysis of Trooper Paul. He did not rely on that determination or undetermined determination by Dr. Scordi-Bello. It is that simple. They try to throw some fluff out and they throw around some documents.
Oh my God.
We have slide 22. Simply because there's a suggestion that Trooper Paul might be the hand in the picture is not an anchor. It's not a tether. It's not an document.
It's sad. Alessi literally said the hand in the picture is not the issue. That's not what they're arguing. He literally said, that's not the point. The hand in the issue is not the point. Look at everything else. And what does Breeden say? They're trying to use the hand in the picture. Literally the opposite. Oh my God.
It's no such thing. In fact, if you look at that photograph, it was taken by Zach Clark.
Oh,
So by the rationale of the defense, they should now be able to ask Dr. Welcher any question they want about Zach Clark's opinion.
It's sad. Literally ignoring everything that Mr. Alessi just argued and it's
efforts what Zach Clark did. It is a photograph that he considered, not an opinion, not an analysis. It has nothing whatsoever to do with Dr. Welcher's analysis or opinions. In fact, the evidence is to the contrary. He came out, conducted an independent analysis, did all of the work himself, considered documents, and he was specific about what was part of his opinion and what was not. And this information was not part of his opinion. They turned to the Google map. A bit misleading. This was generated by Google. Two separate people used the same program, but when you look at the CARS report and you look at Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint, it's different. Dr. Welcher's has a map on the side, and when you look at the numbers themselves, the CAR report says minimum 36.1, maximum 38.8. Dr. Welcher's slide 37.9, 38.1. So in no way did he adopt.
Can we just say it's sad that they're relying on Google Maps to give them estimates for how long it would take to drive between two places instead of actually using any type of reliable method? Because we all know that that shit is completely wrong most of the time. I talked about this the other day, but like it's crazy. And so anyway, just as an aside.
Anchor, tether, use as any basis. Which, in fact, his is different and separate, as all of his analysis is. And so the portrayal of this necessity of information so they can sneak in inadmissible opinions with no witness is simply improper. There is no case law. There is no legal support for it.
It's improper.
They cannot reach back into last year and manipulate a witness and ask him about something that he didn't rely on because it feels good or it sounds good for their case. Dr. Welcher did not rely on Trooper Paul's analysis or reports, and he did not rely on the conclusion of Dr. Scotty Bell of undetermined. If they want to call Trooper Paul, well, maybe they can try to do that, but Dr. Welcher is not the right witness for it. These opinions, to try to do a credibility route, is a core preclusion in criminal law, a core preclusion. You cannot vouch for the credibility of another witness. You cannot comment. It's like asking, did the police officer lie when he said the light was red? It's the absolute same analysis. It just has a lot of icing on it.
Oh my God.
Very briefly, bring the jury, start getting the jury ready, please.
I mean,
Your Honor,
you already like bring the jury in, as in, it's just sad. Like, very briefly, you've got 5 seconds because I'm already bringing the jury in to make sure that you don't have a choice.
with regard to Trooper Paul, Mr. Brennan did not address 80% of the slides that I addressed that showed the basis. When he talked about the picture, making it seem like the picture is the only thing we're relying upon, there's clearly other items, but even the picture, Your Honor, the purpose of the picture is it's got the odometer reading. That's why they took the picture, and that's the tether. So the photo is completely relevant. It's not who's in it. It's the fact that that's the odometer reading they're using. Next point with regard to case law, Mr. Brennan presents none to go against the common sense law that has been there for years. The other thing, Your Honor, is with regard to Mr. Brennan keeps trying to put my arguments into a credibility, like we're trying to attack the credibility of Trooper Paul. He says that we're trying to redo last trial. To the contrary, Your Honor, it's the Commonwealth that brought Trooper Paul into the second trial through Dr. Welcher and Dr. Welcher's reliance on all the work of Trooper Paul. They've brought it in here. And because of that, we get the right to cross-examine it. Last
It's
point.
crazy.
This is not about credibility.
Nope.
He keeps saying something that's not happening, that we're going to attack the credibility of Trooper Paul.
Which is crazy, right? Because the thing is, there's a lot that can be said about Trooper Paul. But the thing that he wasn't was a liar, right? That was not his issue. I would take Trooper Paul over Jud Welcher any day. Trooper Paul didn't weasel. He was just confused and completely not out over his skis would be an understatement. You know what I mean? Like, he should never have had that job, right? But he wasn't. Anyway, he's saying it perfectly. I'll just speak.
What we want to do is to say to Dr. Welcher, you have brought up Trooper Paul. You have used his odometer reading. That odometer reading tethers through to Google. It tethers through everything you're doing. It's the foundation. But what you're ignoring, Dr. Welcher, are all the key cycle results that come from that odometer reading that you relied upon. Dr. Welcher himself can't cherry pick, grab things that he needs from Trooper Paul to do his analysis, and then the Commonwealth say, but you can't go after that because it somehow has Trooper Paul's name on it. It's illogical, Your Honor, and it's incorrect under the law. Thank you.
He's right, of course.
So I disagree with you, Mr. Alessi. I'm not allowing in the line of questioning regarding Trooper Paul, and I'm not allowing the line of questioning regarding Dr. Scotty Bello. So that's my ruling. Let's bring the jury.
I mean, it makes me want to cry. I don't have any other things to say about it. Then they approached the sidebar. All right, I'm just going to skip ahead. Here we go. All right, so now we have Cross the next day. And as y'all know, he had some time overnight, although he had to prepare for, again, it's just wasting time. It's like she could, if this lady right here, it would be less offensive to me if she'd just come in from the get-go and said exactly what she just said without wasting their time. Where he prepared that argument overnight with all of her restrictions and all this bullshit. And anyway, the point I was going to say is somehow he also had time to reflect and re-strategize to a certain extent how he would handle this cross-examination today. So
Since we left
I
yesterday.
know, I hate,
Someone said yes or
Yeah.
no affirmatively. Were you also
Me too,
able to follow the instructions
too.
to refrain from doing any independent?
I very much, I mean, I would say that, like, as much as, like, I can't stand Wendy, I don't know that I hate Wendy Adelson, obviously. And I'm saying this because, like, I don't have really strong negative feelings about people usually at all. Like, Wendy Adelson is, like, an outlier in terms of just how much she really, like, annoys me. You know what I mean? And I can't stand her. But I'm not angry at her, per se. Like, it's a different the way I feel about Judge Bev is the way that I don't know that I can name anybody else that I feel the same way about. So
Research or investigation into this case? Everyone said yes or not affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since you left yesterday? No. Everyone said no or should be. Thank you. Could we have Dr. Welcher back in, please, and Mr. Alessi, feel free to go to the podium.
The computer and any electronics there, so we don't have to address.
It doesn't look like it's turned on.
Oh, okay, good. And smartwatches.
she didn't even acknowledge that he just said something. She's just ignoring him. That's really funny, Heather.
Sir, how am I considering?
Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor.
Yeah.
And Dr. Welcher, we're going to ask you to not turn on your computer yet.
Okey-dokey.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, if I could, smartwatches that are receiving text messages during his direct, if we can make sure that that does not occur.
Get my email. I got all the time.
I get my email on that. You know what you shouldn't be doing while you're testifying is checking your email. So who cares?
Okay, or just don't look at your watch.
That's okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, Dr. Welcher.
Good morning.
Do you know whether there was glass found on the bumper of Miss Reed's Lexus SUV?
It's my understanding there was, yes.
Did you reach a conclusion on whether the glass on the bumper came from the drinking glass that you assert Mr. O'Keefe was holding at the time of the alleged impact?
I didn't have an opportunity to inspect the glass, but the glass was broken and there was glass on the bumper. That's all I know.
So you, as you sit here today, you have no basis to conclude that the glass on the bumper came from the glass that you depict as having been held by Mr. O'Keefe at the time of the alleged impact. Is that correct?
You're mixing a couple things.
No, Dr. Welcher, if you can just answer my question.
I'm trying
I
to.
need to.
God, because he said the same thing yesterday, right? Like day 22, right? Like you're getting things mixed up. Blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna try to straighten you out. I'm trying all that shit. And thank God for Alessi, dude. I'm telling you, this was like, I'm sure I'm not alone in that. This was much needed to hear. I think Mr. Alessi, in trying to be fair, again, like I was saying earlier, right? Mr. Alessi's strategy when it comes to his cross exams, which have been exceptional and effective to what his goals have been with all these other witnesses, we've seen him dismantle witness after witness after witness. And again, I think that overnight they had to reflect on this and like that the strategy of getting answers, certain answers that you want, because you've got like this really brilliant plan, like a 4D chess match laid out, is not going to happen here, right? And so we have to go about this a different way. I don't think it was about him having an off. Some people might have said, oh, he was having an off day, now he's having a good day. I don't think that was it, really, to be honest with you, because I've not seen him be this, what's the right word? Emphatic, especially so soon, like with any witness where he like literally is like, I'm gonna take control right now. Normally he gives so much room and leeway before he would ever say something like this. You know what I mean? Whereas like Jackson would be much quicker typically to say this. But again, remember, like I said, the Commonwealth, I think their goal with him, right, was that they were like, okay, here's a witness who can keep the defense on cross exam from gaining traction and from making points. And so he's going to just do what he's been doing, and just completely try to dismantle and frustrate everything and be completely non-responsive and rude. And that's the strategy, right? And so in other words, I think what happened is he had to kind of accept that. Like, you're not going to be able to get anywhere with him. You're not going to be able to make some of these more elegant and brilliantly like long game type of points or points, like he normally would. Like think back to like Ian Whiffen and stuff, guys, right? So in other words, with accepting that and recognizing here's what his point is, here's what he's going to do, here's why this is the reason he is there. He's not going to answer these questions, and so sort of like a similar idea. It's like, okay, so what do we have to do? We have to just keep him from trying to derail everything and just see if we can make a couple points that we're going to use later on. Like, in other words, instead of trying to use him for their own benefit, realizing that it's not going to happen, I think it's more like use him to just get a couple points that he will concede to, right? That are more foundational that then they can bring up with ARCA or maybe like in closing and stuff like that, right? Things that maybe don't have so much to do directly with things that he'll really get ornery and fight about. So that, so in other words, it's actually really brilliant. You know what I mean? Like he's not going to be able to rip into this witness and do this and that and the other thing. And you know what? He doesn't need to. He destroyed limb for limb every other witness he cross-examined, right? The other thing is this. I think that the comparison and the disparity, if you will, of how different this witness is from everybody else, and then how different he's going to be from the other expert that the defense called today. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, maybe perhaps the defense thought, you know what? The best thing they can get out of him is the fact that he was such a dick, and that we're going to make sure that the jury recognizes that. And then we'll show them what a real expert looks like. You know, I have some other thoughts on it too, but we'll talk about that when we get to day 24.
That you depict as having been held by Mr. O'Keefe at the time of the alleged impact. Is that correct?
Well, you're mixing a couple things.
No, Dr. Welcher, if you can just answer my question. If I need to rephrase it, I will. I'll ask it a different way.
And the other thing too is, remember, he keeps being put under all this time pressure from Judge Bev, and this dude just would eat up the time.
You have no basis, as you sit here today, to conclude that the glass on the bumper came from a drinking glass connected to Mr. O'Keefe, do you?
Well, we have a picture of a broken glass at the scene. So I wouldn't say we have no basis. We don't necessarily have enough to conclude it's from it, though.
Do you had depictions in your test with Mr. O'Keefe holding a glass, correct?
Correct.
My question is, you have no evidence to show at all other than, and I'm talking evidence, testing information. You're saying you have no evidence that shows that the glass on the bumper is not the same glass as you showed on your slides as being found supposedly at the scene. You have no test evidence that that's the same glass, do you?
So again, the one I have at my testing obviously was not the same glass. We have pictures of a broken bar glass in the snow near where Mr. O'Keefe's body was. We have glass fragments on the rear of the bumper. That's the extent of my knowledge on the correlation between those two.
So you said you reviewed the reports and testimonies of various Commonwealth representatives, correct? That's in your report.
Correct, in the initial.
In the initial, right, correct. And some of those reports included forensic scientists who work for the Massachusetts State Police, correct?
I believe that's correct.
And you put those in your report as documents that you reviewed, correct?
Correct.
And as you sit here today, it's your testimony. You don't know whether in any of the reports of the Massachusetts State Police, there is an answer to the question of whether there's any connection at all between the glass found in the snow and the glass on the bumper.
I recall it being inconclusive.
Oh, so you recall that the testing was inconclusive?
I don't remember what testing they did, but for example, when they put the taillight fragments back together, they were able to deduce that the fragments were from the taillight. I don't think they attempted to do that with the glass.
Assume that there has been testing of the glass on the bumper, and assume that that testing conclusively determines that the glass on the bumper is not the glass that was found in the snow.
Okay.
Assume that.
Okay.
How would that affect your analysis?
I'd want to know where the glass came from, but we still have a whole bunch of other elements. So I don't think it would affect the end results.
So would it have any part in your analysis with my assumption that the glass on the bumper is not the glass that's associated with the broken glass that was supposedly found in the snow?
Yes, I mean, we always want to have as much answers or as many answers as possible. So I would want to know if we could figure out where it came from.
And wouldn't the fact, assuming that the test results show there's no connection, meaning the glass on the bumper is different from the glass in the snow, wouldn't that be contrary to your theory of what happened in some...
Okay, now remember when I said from the end of day 22, I said, listen to this. I said, pay attention to this. The part where he talked about the hypothesis, right? And remember how he said he started with the hypothesis of whatever it was, of like, oh, where was it? Like where on the Lexus the collision happened. He's like, I started with that and then I sought to disprove it. So he started with that there was a collision with the Lexus and John O'Keefe. And the question before him that he was saying he was hypothesizing about was where on the back of the Lexus. Now listen.
Wait.
It depends on when the glass was actually broken. The glass was in his hand, at least that's the testimonial evidence I've seen.
Good night,
So
Flash.
it depends on whether it's broken from contact with the rear of the vehicle or broken with contact on the ground.
Assume that the glass on the bumper is not the glass that was found in the snowbank. Doesn't that, at least in part, contradict your hypothesis as to whether there was contact by the Lexus with Mr. O'Keefe at 34 Fairview?
So if you recall on my slides, nowhere did we discuss that in my slides. So no, it wouldn't contradict it. I would want to know where that glass came from.
But you didn't seek that information, did you, sir, in your analysis to determine where the glass came from?
Of course I did. I read the reports about it.
Okay,
But
maybe it'll be later. There's going to be a part that you guys will catch, and I'll point it out too. But where he talks about his hypothesis, and it's just complete. The contradictions are insane. That's all.
Sit here and you say you don't know the answer. There's steps you could have taken to get that answer quite easily. Couldn't you have, sir?
Not me. That's a material science expert.
You've been communicating with Lieutenant Tully, haven't you?
Correct.
You could have asked Lieutenant Tully that question,
To my knowledge, he's not a material science expert.
but could he have told you the results of testing on that glass on the bumper and whether it was any way associated with the glass found in the snow? Wouldn't that have been an easy question to ask him? Just has there been testing, and if so, what's the results?
Yes, but my knowledge from reading the reports was it was inconclusive.
But you didn't read all of the reports, did you, sir?
Apparently not.
Let's turn to another topic, laser scans. Part of your analysis involved conducting laser scans of portions of 1 Meadows Avenue, the house of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
Those laser scans were used, at least in part, to answer the question of whether the collision between Ms. Reed's SUV and Mr. O'Keefe's Chevy Traverse at 1 Meadows at approximately 5:07 a.m. on January 29, 2022, caused the right rear taillight of the Lexus to break, correct?
Correct.
And in that analysis, inches literally matter, correct?
You want to get it as accurate as possible.
And the reason why inches matter is because, and we're going to get to this, you tried, and you did it in your slide presentation on direct, you tried to see whether the Lexus lined up with the Traverse such that there could be a break of the taillight. That was part of your analysis, correct?
So the main part of the photogrammetry was to determine the speeds and the angles and the degree of overlap on the vehicles. And then we also looked at the damage from the video, or actually it's just where the snow was knocked off the rear of the Chevy Traverse, and document the height of that.
You said the main part. I don't want to engage in semantics. I want to go to my question of, isn't part of the laser scan analysis to determine whether or not those two vehicles aligned sufficiently such that the Lexus could break, the taillight of the Lexus could break coming into contact with the Chevy Traverse? Wasn't that part of your analysis, at least in part?
Yes.
Okay. And in that analysis, inches literally matter, correct?
It can, depending on which way you're going inches.
So the Ring camera at 1 Meadows, you're familiar with that Ring camera, right? At 1
Correct.
Meadows? That Ring camera at 1 Meadows was used as part of the laser scan process that you and your firm Aperture performed at 1 Meadows on October 2nd, 2024. Do I have the date correct?
I believe so, but like the videos were not literally used during the laser scans. We took the laser scans, the video, combined them together in the process called photogrammetry.
Okay, let's get this down to the fundamentals. You used, and that was my question, Your Honor, if we could publish the exhibit with regard to the Ring camera.
Sure, what exhibit is it?
Yeah, I've got my date. Yeah. Dr. Welcher, you recognize that Ring camera as being at 1 Meadows. You discussed it, as a matter of fact, on your direct testimony, correct?
Yes.
Now, that Ring camera was utilized as part of your laser scan process, correct? It was used.
So you're confusing laser scan and photogrammetry. The video, the laser scanners are together used in the photogrammetry. The camera and the laser scans are not used necessarily with each other.
Was that Ring camera used for any part of your work?
Absolutely, the photogrammetry.
I just need to be able to finish my question, sir. Was that
Sorry.
Ring camera used for any part of your work at 1 Meadows on October 2nd, 2024?
Yes.
And it was used for what purpose?
So
In the photogrammetric process to establish the position and dimensions of various things in the video.
Doug, so are you referencing something earlier that I didn't see? I didn't see you having a brain fart. Maybe you're saying something that happened somewhere else. I'm not sure.
So then we could go back and overlay the vehicles and track the tracks in the snow, as well as look at the damage to the vehicles.
You mean like a cat track of snow?
Right. So this was used to, as a basis, not the only one, to establish dimensions of the other work that was done in analysis at 1 Meadows, correct?
Correct.
You can take that down, Mr. Wolf. You know that the Ring camera at 1 Meadows, in existence when Aperture did the work on October 2nd, 2024, was different than the Ring camera that was in existence on January 29th of 2022, the date where you went through to see if those two vehicles align. Is that correct? The cameras are different.
That is correct.
And you know that the cameras are different, and you knew that as part of your analysis, correct?
Correct.
Did you document the differences between the two cameras as part of any work performed at One Meadows?
Yes.
And did you measure any differences there might have been between the location of the newer Ring camera from the older one that was in existence on January 29th of 2022?
No, what we did is use the current Ring camera in conjunction with the old Ring camera, and with the laser scans, we're able to, again, map the points onto the scene. That's why I showed you the report from the photogrammetry software that reported our error.
Sir, my question was just measurement, not your process.
Oh.
Did you measure the difference
I don't believe
between
so.
where the old camera was and where the new camera was?
No, it was angled slightly more to the right, though.
How would you know that if you were not retained on January 29th of 2022? How would you know where the original angles were?
Because when you look at the first camera, the one on January 22nd, it's here. The new one is slightly over to the right.
That's an eyeball approximation analysis. That's not a measurement, correct?
Well, I don't know that we actually measured it, but we accounted for it and corrected for it. But you can see, for example, what the
Question was, did you measure it, you fucking asshole? So the answer is no.
original one shows, for example, to the left-hand side, compared to what the new one shows to the left-hand side, and it's angled more to the right.
Sir, you have experience with Ring cameras, correct?
I do.
And I think a lot of members of the public have experience with Ring cameras. You can move just the camera portion ever so slightly and change significantly the angle of the camera, can't you, what it captures? Just a small turn,
Potentially.
right? Even a millimeter turn can make a change. A 2 millimeter, a 1 inch can make a significant change with regard to what the camera captures, correct?
Could, sure.
So, did you measure whether the newer camera that was present on October 2nd, 2024 was installed to the left? And I'm talking measure to the right, to the top, or the bottom relative to the
Or
camera
as
that
he
was
says,
there on
measure,
January
measure.
29th of 2022.
So we solved for the camera
I'm
position.
asking if you measured, sir.
No, we didn't measure.
So let's talk about some other differences with regard to cameras and Ring cameras. Different Ring cameras can have different levels of distortion,
Millimeters
correct?
matter.
Potentially.
Shout out to the
Cameras,
county water.
well, are you saying that all Ring cameras have the same level of distortion?
No, but again, they're mass produced. So you could have some that have the same exact distortion. You could have some that have different.
And you don't know
Ugh.
the comparative distortion between what I'm just going to now refer to as the old Ring camera that was there January 29, 2022, and the camera that you saw on October 2024, which I'll refer to the new camera. You don't know the difference in the distortion between those cameras as you sit here today, do you?
So we know enough information that if the distortions had been different, our errors would have been too high. And so the fact that our errors are within acceptable, what's called an RMS error, we know that the distortions are similar enough to give us accurate measurements.
Sir, that is speculation.
I mean, the thing is that an acceptable amount of error for this when they didn't measure it, and then you add to that time drift and the clock drift and and it's just like, it's so. It's like reality for the Commonwealth's case. If you're on this jury and you're like trying to figure out what the Commonwealth is supposed to be seeking the truth, right? And like based on reality and the science and the data, facts, right? Things that are concrete. And when you think that that's what you're going to be getting, and it's like, this must seem like a bad acid trip or something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, where it's like time's warped and everything is backwards and forwards at the same time. And it just is very, I mean, I don't even know, man. It's like they're trying to fuck with people's brains.
That is not data. That is not a measurement. You didn't measure the distortion, sir, did you? If the cameras, you didn't have the old camera to do it.
We didn't, but we had images from the old camera. And then when we get images from the new camera and solve those camera properties and then overlay data from the old images to the new images with the point clouds, if that distortion is too great, we will have too high of errors in our project, which is why I showed the error report from the photogrammetry process to show that we have checked for that and documented that our errors are in acceptable range so that we have confidence in our results.
You do not have information from the manufacturer of Ring. You didn't present it and you don't have it as to what is the acceptable level of distortion for the analysis that you did, do you, sir?
The
You have
photogrammetry,
that from Ring.
and I don't have it for Ring, but I need it from Ring.
Absolutely.
So now let's go to,
Absolutely.
if cameras have different levels of distortion,
Yep.
That would change the analysis in reconciling the difference between their angles. That's a pretty straightforward proposition, sir, wouldn't it?
So it depends on how much difference it is, but we have accounted for that.
With which model of the Ring camera was present at One Meadows on January 29, 2022? Which model?
I don't know. I'd have to go look through the data.
Do you believe I'm not going to take up the time to have you look, but do you really believe you've got
Because you
the
can't.
model of the Ring camera that was in existence on January 29th of 2022?
I don't know. I
You
need to
didn't
look
present
through
it in your direct testimony, did you, sir?
I did not.
So do you have the model of the Ring camera that was present at One Meadows on October 2nd, 2024?
No.
So you don't have even the model for either one of them.
Nope, but we have videos from both of them and scans of the scene.
So now let's talk about another aspect of Ring cameras. They have mechanisms, as I was talking about earlier, that allow the user to adjust the camera angle, correct?
Correct.
And do you know whether there was a difference in the camera angle between the two cameers?
Yes, as we already discussed, there was a slight difference in the
But
angle.
you don't have a measurement of that, right, sir?
Correct.
Okay.
But we accounted for it.
So
Dude, oh my God.
wouldn't a difference in models of Ring cameras be relevant at all to your analysis of trying to reconcile any differences between them?
So if you have video from both of them and you have laser scans with three-dimensional geometry of the scene, you can go in and it's called a reverse camera analysis and solve for the distortion properties. The scans give you the real world dimensions. So once you know the real world dimensions, you can then go in, you can go in and then solve for the camera lens properties based upon the real world distortions. So for example, if there's a little bit of bending at the end, the laser scan data will show that, and you can correct for that, knowing information about the laser scanner.
I'll
or
ask
the
the
laser
question.
scan data.
I'm sorry, I thought you finished, sir.
So Heather's asking if I saw any of the defense expert. So here's what I did. So, I've told y'all I've got like a 40 without traffic. I've got like a 45-minute drive each way to the law firm. And on the way home today, actually, we had a tornado watch and like torrential downpours with flash flooding. And it was rush hour. It took me an hour and 45 minutes to get home tonight. So here's the only good side to that is that literally, you know how you can like have your phone to where it's like there's like the thing that you put it in, like in your car, there's like a thing. What do they call it? I don't know. It's like a mount thing, and you can put your phone. Most people use it for maps probably, but I can't handle that. People talking to me while I'm driving. Real people is fine. I can't handle that turn right. I can't. I don't do it. So what I've been doing in order to try to still keep up with some of the testimony while I'm like, not having time to watch it, but it especially worked out today is like I have my phone on that thing and I flip it to where it's like full screen, horizontal landscape mode or whatever, and literally like catch up on watching some of the testimony. And having said that, I'm really listening more than watching, but it's not like the phone is put away or what. Like, in other words, usually when I'm like, oh yeah, I was listening while driving, it used to be that my phone was in my purse and I was like just listening only. But like now I've got it set up to where I'm like actually, if I want to look at it, I can basically, So I did catch some of it.
I'm going to ask the question again because it's a narrow question. Wouldn't knowing the difference in the models be relevant? That's all I'm asking. Wouldn't it be relevant to your analysis of reconciling the
Very
differences to them?
informative.
Wouldn't it be relevant?
No.
So you think the different models are irrelevant to any process you occasioned at one? It's irrelevant.
So the analysis of the video itself,
Yes, Doug, this is the paint dude. Yes, the paint, blue paint. That's this dude. Yep.
is more important than the models.
I'm not asking if it's more important. I'm just asking, would it be relevant?
No, I don't believe it'd be relevant.
Now let's go to another aspect of the cameras. Are key parameters in a camera that the software needs to know focal length?
It is.
Is imaging size something that is an important parameter in a camera?
Yes,
Are sampling characteristics an important parameter in cameras?
can be.
Is it the principal point? You understand that concept, sir? Is that an important parameter in a camera?
Define how you're using principal point.
Sure. A principal point of an image is the point where a camera's direct line of sight, called, as you may know, the optical axis, intersects the image plane. Does that
Gotcha,
sound
yes.
familiar?
Mhm.
So isn't that the image's mathematical center, the principal point?
More or less, yes.
And for high accuracy photogrammetric work, it's important to know if the lens is mounted centered over the image sensor due to the small manufacturing variances, correct?
Could be important.
And if the principal point is the center of the image.
Okay.
That's relevant. So doesn't that affect the mathematical calculation of the light ray geometry?
It could.
So the variance in manufacturing between cameras is a known issue. Do you agree?
I do.
There's small manufacturing variances that affect one of the key components of the fundamental parameters of the camera, namely the principal point, right?
Correct.
Did you perform the camera calibration of the camera in place in October of 2024?
Yes. So within photogrammetry, we calibrated the photogrammetric analysis to the camera.
Did you address the principal point in that calibration? Do you have documentation that you addressed that important factor, the principal point?
So the checking of the RMS error in the software takes into account, sums up all the potential errors in the measurements, which would include that.
Sir, you know the importance of all of these topics because the output of all the work Aperture did at One Meadows, almost all of it, springs from that camera, correct?
It starts there.
Okay, it starts there. And if the starting point is wrong, then where you go from the starting point is going to be at least potentially wrong, correct?
Potentially.
Would you agree that Ring cameras have a swiveling mechanism so that the user can adjust the camera angle?
Some do.
Do you know whether the camera that was in existence on January 29, 2022 had a swiveling mechanism?
I believe it did.
Believe? Do you know?
I do not know for a fact, but
You-
those style of Ring cameras on the surveillance have adjustability that includes angle.
But you don't know whether the camera that was there, the specific camera on January 29, 2022, had a swiveling mechanism or not, correct?
Correct.
And do you know whether the camera that you saw in October of 2024 had a swiveling mechanism on it?
It did.
And where did you document the fact that it had a swiveling mechanism?
He doesn't. I mean, again, I guarantee you didn't document it. But he's not gonna. He's gonna try to weasel his way out of that by saying something else. But it doesn't mean document. Heather, were you asking for any specific reason about whether I saw any of that witness today?
I think we have photos of the camera.
Did you document it in
Not
writing, and did you document the tolerance of the swiveling mechanism?
No.
Let's go to, and again, all of the camera, this camera that you use is the starting point for your laser scan and photogrammetry process, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's go to another topic. On your direct testimony, as I recall, you stated essentially from various information that you lined up in the video, and we're talking about the lining up of the Lexus with the Traverse. And this is at One Meadows. And so, as I understand what you did, sir, is you took what are called point clouds, 3D images, created them for the Lexus. You took created 3D images, synonym point clouds of the Traverse, and then you attempted to line them up to determine, among other things, whether they would align sufficient so that the Lexus could line up and potentially hit the Traverse such that the tail light of the Lexus could be broken. Was that at least part of your analysis?
That was part. There was more.
So
That's what part means. That there should be
you
more.
showed a slide, a few slides, and with your honor's permission, what I'd like to do is to start with slide 90.
All right, do you have any problem with Dr. Welcher keeping his printed copy that he's using?
I have no problem with the printed copy, your honor.
I'm sorry, what slide again?
90.
No, I printed out tiny.
Oh my
Can I
God,
pull it
you
up?
see the,
Yes. Yeah.
Does that slide, that's part of your presentation, depict a view from the top of the Lexus on the right and the Chevy Traverse on the left?
So for all of you guys who were asking, who've been commenting about the Lexus and the different, like, what you call it, like the hydraulics or something like that, or where it can change height. I forget exactly if that's called hydraulics, but and again, I didn't hear all of this because of reasons I'm working at the law firm, but I just know that I know that it comes up here, I think soon, where they do discuss where the height can change and whatnot. So there we
Right.
go.
And is that depicting contact between the two vehicles?
It is.
Now let's zero in a closer look, and that is a contact point. Am I correct?
Correct. I mean, there's multiple points. There's more than
Multiple
one.
points, but it shows more clearly the contact between
Correct.
the two vehicles. Now, if we could. The next, and that is number 91, Mr. Wolf. So, Your Honor, 91. I think these are just going to go in order for a few, and I'll keep announcing them. So, this is 91, same vehicles, just a different viewpoint. Is that correct, Dr. Welcher?
Correct. This and the next
I
slide.
just want to stay
I know.
with this one. I
Hold
just
on a
asked the
second.
question, does it show the contact?
so go ahead and answer now.
This slide and all the other slides, we're trying to show the angle of contact, but because it's two-dimensional image, you're losing some perspective. For example, here you're seeing the chrome piece on Mr. O'Keefe's Chevrolet, which is on the right. you're seeing it obviously behind where the Lexus is. So we were trying to show it at a whole bunch of different angles to try and illustrate the degree of closeness or lack thereof.
All right. So is it correct that on your direct examination, you said in sum and substance, we looked at the degree of overlap and there's only about a 2 to 3 millimeters of overlap between the vehicles? Is that what you recall saying on direct?
That is correct.
And that you stated that that supposed 2 to 3 millimeters of overlap was insufficient to cause the taillight of the Lexus to contact the rear of the Chevrolet. Do you recall saying that?
That's correct.
Now, I would like you to look at that. This is from your slide presentation. Is that not showing contact between the two vehicles?
So it absolutely is not. What you're seeing is a portion of the vehicle that is behind the area. Keep in mind the angle, the Lexus is angled off to the left. So the area that you see here is actually, in this case, in front of where the taillight is. This is why we tried showing it from a whole bunch of different angles, because when you try and take a two-dimensional image and look at it, you see stuff in the background. So and again, this is why in the computer, we overlaid them, looked at the measurements, in the computer where you don't have this, we have the three-dimensional measurements, and it does not hit.
Where did you show in your slide presentation what you just said, that it doesn't show an overlap?
So
Where?
it shows a contact. It definitely contacted, I'm sorry, Mr. Porter, down below here. It does not show a contact here. So to answer your question, all the next slides were our attempt to do that. So all the next slides is your answer.
The thing is like with all the fucking quote data points that just look like snow all over it, you can't actually see where any of the edges are. And it's almost just like, again, it's like gaslighting. It's like, we're going to be really scientific about it. And here we go. And look at all that. But it's like, you can't actually see it makes it harder to see. And, you know,
We're going to go to those next slides. So you're, just to be clear, you're saying that that depiction does not show any contact between the taillight of the Lexus and the Chevy Traverse.
So the upper taillight, just to be clear, because the lower taillight is much closer.
Well, it's not only much closer, it's in contact, isn't it, sir?
It's very close. It's probably within an inch of being in contact.
Oh, so you state that even the lower part of the taillight is not making contact?
So if, again, maybe there's a photo we could show or a scan. That is on the rear of the vehicle, and it contacts on the corner, which is just around, so maybe like an inch or so in front of it on the corner.
I'm just going with what you presented in your slide.
Well, let's go to the next slides, and then
Sir,
we
I
can
will determine which slides we go to on my question.
Good job.
I'm just
So
hoping to
now
answer
let's
questions.
go to
Shut
Mr.
up.
Wolf, the next slide.
good job. Good for Mr. Alessi.
There we go.
In your presentation, my question is zeroing in. Are you saying that that slide does not show contact between the tail light of Ms. Reed's Lexus and any part of the Chevy Traverse?
Absolutely. It's exactly what it shows. You can see a little better here. Again, we tried all these different angles, which is why all these slides are in there, but you can see some of the geometry of the light, this structure. And again, remember I said the Chevy kind of curves in as it goes up a little bit.
Let's go to the next slide. 40, yes, please. Is it working? 41, Your Honor.
That's exhibit 41? No, I have a question. It's not my slide.
So, Mr. Alessi, is this exhibit number 41 or is this from the PowerPoint? Because
Slide 41. Slide.
Yes.
So I'm putting this up because I want to show an actual photograph of that taillight, and I would like you, sir, to focus on the quarter panel taillight in each. Do you see a jutting out of the quarter panel taillight in that photo? Do you see it jut out?
So I don't know if you and I are talking the same thing. There are little fins here.
Correct. Now, what I'd like to do is to go back to the depiction we were just looking at, and that depiction doesn't show the jutting out, does it?
No, it does. Those are actually more on the side of the vehicle. You can't see them in this image.
Stop it.
You
But-
can't see it.
Hold on a second. I wasn't finished. But
Sir.
they are 100% there. We actually did special hand scans with a hand scanner of the taillight to put it back on to the vehicle.
You say they're 100% there, but you can't see it in that depiction, can you? The jutting out that you could see in the two-dimensional one we just saw. You can't see it.
I can't see who's behind that wall because it's being blocked by something. I can't see on the side of that taillight because it's on the side I can't see. It's being blocked.
Sir, my question is simple. You cannot see the jutting out of the taillight in this depiction, can you?
Correct.
Okay, now let's go on to the next question in this topic. You could have easily solved what you consider to be the issues you had with trying to show it lining up, couldn't you, sir? You had an easy solution for that.
I took the best solution. I'm not sure what
You
you're
had
referring to.
3D images, correct?
I did.
You could have shown and measured 3D images to get almost the exact contact point and almost the exact dimensions if you had just used the 3D images that you had available to you. Isn't that correct?
That's exactly what we did. When I went through the video analysis, I showed you how we overlaid the point clouds, the 3D scans on top of each vehicle. So we took the, we took
Sir,
the
please
vehicles.
don't interrupt.
Hold on.
Your Honor, he keeps referencing my hand and saying I'm doing something when I'm not. And I think that's distracting to the jury.
So,
I'm not interrupting
Hold on. Let the witness answer the
I
question.
am. I'm just holding my hand like this, Your Honor.
Oh.
He keeps saying that I'm doing
Mr.
something.
Alessi, please.
All right.
Go ahead, finish the answer, Dr. Welcher.
Again, in the photogrammetric analysis,
Dude, the way that I hate her.
I showed the video. I showed how we overlaid the point cloud on top of the video. That proves that the way we solved it, correct camera characteristics matches. Otherwise, that would be distorted.
That is just insane. That's just insane. If anyone wants me to elaborate on why that is completely unbelievable to see, I will be happy to do that, but I think you guys probably know why. Yeah.
Overlaid the scans of the Lexus into the photogrammetric analysis. We overlaid the scans of the scene into the photogrammetric analysis. We overlaid all that stuff into the analysis. We did exactly what you're suggesting.
You could have easily addressed this issue by the following. If you really believe there was no contact or not sufficient contact, you could have produced a graphic that shows a gap between the two vehicles. A graphic, couldn't you? That's not a graphic.
What is that?
Sir, I get to ask the questions and you are to answer them subject to the judge's ruling. So my question is, couldn't you have created a graphic that would have better shown the issue that you are creating or talking about today? That's my question. Couldn't you have created a graphic?
We did. We created a whole bunch of graphics.
You called what we just saw a graphic?
Yes.
Well, if there's a gap, why isn't there then something that shows a clear gap?
Because when you have the angulation of the vehicles, you have perspective. When you're looking at it, even if you do it top down, you see everything projected onto a single flat plane. So you can't tell the height of things. So when you see things in this dimension, you can't necessarily see depth of things. So you lose in two-dimensional images, you lose.
And this just feels a lot like this just feels like another one of those things, like the clock drift and the time variance and the real world time and the, the cell phones is running fast, but the cell phone's also running slow, and all the other the angles of the cameras and the bullshit he was talking about just a few minutes ago. It's just weird.
One dimension depending on which way you're looking. That's why I showed it from all these different angles to try and show exactly what you're saying. We had graphics to do that.
3D images allow you to show perspectives for 360 degrees, correct? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Oh,
So-
we're slurping.
None of what you presented in your slideshow shows the contact points from 360 degrees, does it?
I don't understand your question. Are you asking if I showed it at every single, I went through 360 slides that showed it at every single degree?
Sir, let's move on. I think I've made the point.
So I'm going to strike the comment,
Okay.
Mr. Alessi.
Dr. Welcher, let's go to the next topic and keep with these two depictions. Are these two images point clouds or 3D images? Are these
Those are one and the same thing. Yes.
I would use them as synonym. Which term of the two do you want to use? Point cloud or 3D images?
Both are fine. It's a 3D image composed of points. Which
So let's just call them 3D images so we can do this more quickly. The Lexus and the Chevy Traverse that are depicted there are both 3D images of those vehicles, correct?
Correct.
And Aperture created the 3D images, correct?
Correct.
Sir, did you do these scans and did you personally create these images?
No, one of the assistants at Aperture did.
So you're speaking about what somebody else did at Aperture, correct?
They were doing it at my direction. And for example, the Lexus scan, I showed the photographs. You can see the gentleman that works at Aperture, Mike Morelli, was scanning them for me while I was doing the rest of the inspection. And then the hand scanning of the rear taillight was done by another engineer. I was out there with him doing it, taking measurements. And then same thing with the Chevy Traverse.
My question is, you didn't do the creation of these 3D images, did you?
The individual images, no.
All right, so let's go to these individual images. These are 3D images. Is
God.
that your testimony?
You know what's funny? You can see he wanted to keep talking. Watch this. This is how you can see that. Like, in other words, I think it's a better way to judge Alessi's effectiveness, like the change in his effectiveness from the day prior, is actually to pay attention to the witness and not Mr. Alessi. Because watch how this witness will automatically try to revert back to his automatic default is to do the same weasel strategy he was doing before, but he doesn't. Well, he's still doing it a little bit, but it's a lot less of him. Basically, what's the right word? He starts to say it, but then instead of trying to talk over Mr. Alessi, right? He behaves a little bit better, complies.
3D images, did you?
The individual images, no.
All right, so let's go to these individual images. These are 3D
Right there. See, he was going to keep talking, and then he stopped himself. So that's good.
images. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Let's look at the taillight.
Okay.
That's not a 3D image. That's a Photoshop, isn't it?
Nope.
Oh, so it's your testimony that taillight is a 3D image.
That absolutely is a 3D image. The way you can tell is when you get up near the chrome, because lasers don't like shiny objects, you start to get a scatter. So see all these dots here? If that was a photo, you wouldn't have these dots.
Let's go to the Chevy Traverse. Let's, Mr. Woke, zero in on the content. Yeah. There's grain on that taillight, in the taillight. That's a 3D image of the taillight, isn't it, sir?
They're both 3D images.
Well, I just want to stay with one. That taillight is a 3D image, and one of the ways you can tell is it's got all that grainy material on it, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go back, Mr. Woke, to the Lexus. Let's now go to the bumper.
But do you want me to explain the difference?
No,
Okay.
thank you. I would like to go to the bumper. Do you see the predominance of any grainy image on the bumper?
There's a little bit. So, for example, when you get near edges, it has a hard time with edges.
I'm sorry, the bumper cover.
Right.
See the bumper cover up above?
This whole thing is the bumper cover. That's the step pad. That's the rear body panel or the rear deck lid.
I'm talking about the step pad, sir. Just the step pad of the bumper?
You asked about just from here to here.
Correct. The bumper step
Can we
pad.
zoom in on it?
Pardon me?
Can we zoom in on it?
Sure. Do you see it?
Yeah, I see graininess.
Let's go over to...
Right in here. You can see it all through here. You see it through here.
Well, I'm talking about the step pad, not the entire bumper. I'm just talking about the step pad.
Right. So you're zooming in on the bumper.
Right.
The step pad is this structure up here.
We're going to move up. It just takes a while. So your testimony is that is a...
Can you zoom in more?
That's you would like it zoomed in?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Your testimony is that is a 3D image, not a Photoshop step bumper cover. Is that correct?
So we have mapped the color over the 3D scans. We used 2 separate scanners. If you recall, when I got out to Miss Reed's vehicle, that taillight was gone. So we had to replace the taillight.
Talking about the bumper cover, not the taillight.
Okay, I'm explaining the process.
I'm just asking about the bumper cover, not the process.
So focus your answer on the bumper.
That is a laser scan.
Okay, so your
That's a 3D
testimony is the step part of the bumper cover is a 3D image from a laser scan, and it's not a Photoshop. That's your testimony.
Absolutely.
And you didn't perform the work for the 3D that you claim the bumper step up is. You didn't do that work to produce that depiction, did you, sir? Somebody else in your firm did it.
So this is all done at my direction. The engineers that work for me, so I'm telling them what to do.
See, you know he really loved being able to say this answer, right? You guys can see why, right? This is all done at my direction. I'm the one in control. I'm the head honcho. This was all done at my. I'm telling them what to do. It's just like, ew.
For the 3D that you claim the bumper step up is, you didn't do that work to produce that depiction, did you, sir? Somebody else in your firm did it.
So this is all done at my direction. The engineers that work for me, so I'm telling them what to do.
God, bossy and everything. I mean, it's just all the worst characteristics of that people could have. I feel like
I'm not the one punching the keys.
That's
I'm
my
saying,
question.
I need you to do this, and this. Use the hand scanner. Go scan the light. I need to put this back in.
I mean, the thing is it's not. It's normal, right, for people to work as a team, which means they delegation, right? You delegate. Certain people do certain tasks and what have you, right? That's not a problem, right? Sometimes everybody works in, it just depends on where you're at, right? Sometimes there's more of a different, like people are leaders, like a team leader, whatever, right? In any type of job, what have you. Other times it's like everybody has an equal role. Regardless, my point is that it's not that the problem for me is not that he's not the one that punched the numbers in or whatever. It's literally just the way he described it, as if he's got like a bunch of little like slaves or something. That's how he described it. Like he's like sitting there with a hammer and he's got a bunch of little slaves. Like I'm picturing like from like a Disney movie or something, like little goblins. Like that's what I'm picturing, like little goblins that are the size of his hands or fingers. And he's just like, get back to work. Like that's what I'm picturing, the way he described it. You know, so yeah.
It was missing when we got to it. So
yeah.
no, I'm not
Right.
punching the keys.
Okay, so
Okay, come on over, please.
Okay.
no, we don't need to back up, Mr. With regard to, no, we don't need to back up, Mr. Wolf. Isn't it correct that 3D images allow for proper and most accurate measurements as opposed to 2D images? Is that a correct general statement?
I mean, generally, yeah.
Okay, that's my question. So let's go to the next topic. Let's talk about hydraulics on the Lexus SUV. What type of hydraulic system
The thing
does the
is I think we all remember when you used to talk more. And so it's like, you know, if we don't hear from you in like, I don't know, 2 hours or 1 hour or anything, it's usually people can assume that somebody's, you know, not there. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but, you know, quiet if you're still here.
the Lexus SUV have?
So it has a mechanism, I believe that's a pneumatic, it's air-based system that raises it up and down.
Do you want what the name
Pneumatic. Okay, what word did I use? Hydraulics? Anyway, pneumatic. There you
of
go.
that system is, sir?
No, not off my head.
Do you know how it works
I do.
specifically?
Well, I mean, I know generally that there's a button on the interior where you can raise and lower the ride height.
And is that the extent of your knowledge of that system on the Lexus?
No, again, I know when you park it, it'll drop down the ride height. When you adjust it for different roadway conditions, it'll change the ride height.
Do you know what the height tolerances are? In other words, the lowest to the highest?
I believe it's around 1.25 inches. At
Inch
one
and
point in time I measured it. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So you believe it's 1.25 inches up and 1.25 inches down? How do you apply the 1.25 inches?
I recall the total being like 1.25 inches, but I measured it at one point in time. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Would you be surprised to hear that the tolerance is 5 inches on that vehicle?
I
Five
would be surprised.
inches?
I don't recall it being that much, but I would need to double check.
Assume
Mhm.
that the manual as well as other informations support that the tolerance is 5 inches and that specifically the vehicle can be raised 3 inches high and it can be lowered 2 inches. That's the basis for the 5. What was the suspension height of Miss Reed's Lexus that you used for your accident reconstruction analysis out front at 34 Fairview between 12 a.m. and 1 a.m. on January 29, 2022, to determine whether it was possible for the spoiler on the back of the Lexus to make contact with the eye of
Spoiler!
Mr.
Yay,
O'Keefe?
finally.
It was even possible. What did you use for a measurement?
Is he gonna be like, what's a spoiler? He has to say that, right? Because he thought he called it a fin and then he called it, and you guys heard, right? But initially he called it a fin and then it was wind wing for the rest of the time on direct.
We
Of the suspension.
matched the measurements from when the vehicle was tested, I believe on February 1st at the Canton Police Department.
What match did you make?
So we aligned the bottom of the taillight, actually the sheet metal right below the taillight. So we adjusted the height of the Lexus to match that.
Did you in any place document what level the Lexus was at the time of any testing, meaning the suspension? Did you document it all?
Yes.
No,
Where?
yeah, right. This is documented. That's very clear.
Slide 107.
Can we have slide 107?
Who else says that? And then it's never documented. It's pretty funny.
And then if you could zoom in on the lower photograph, the gentleman with the blue shirt. Zoom in a little more, please. So if I may, we matched
That's not, he means writing it down. Dude,
the bottom of the sheet metal here, 2 photographs when it was at the Canton Police Department.
Sir, my question is, where did you document whether the suspension was at 0, whether it was +3 or -2? Where did you document that?
Right here.
wow, this
And what are the numbers of the documentation of that?
I don't know. We were matching the photos. So I don't care what the numbers are. I care that the height is
oh my God.
the same.
Okay, so I just heard you say, if I heard correctly, you don't care what the suspension is at. Is that your testimony?
No, I don't care what the suspension number is as long as the heights match.
I understand. So
Yeah, but here's the dude. This dude. Millimeters matter. And eyeballs can't, dude. I can't.
what was the suspension height of Miss Reed's Lexus at 5:07 a.m. on January 29th, 2022, while at One Meadows and colliding with the Chevy Traverse. What was the suspension height then?
We assumed it was the same as when it was at the Canton Police Department.
Exactly. You assumed, but
Yeah.
there's no measurement like was just on that depiction. There was no
You could've measured
note
it.
that said, okay, we're doing this very important and inches sensitive measurements
And
to
it's
see
like,
whether the tail
how
light.
hard would that have been? Just fucking measure it and write it down. I can do that, and I'm not an expert. You just get your freaking. You had a yardstick in the picture anyway. Measure it and write it down. Why not? Of all the things, it's the most basic of all. I just.
Light on the Lexus makes contact with the
No.
Traverse, but there's
Heather, that's a great question. I will just say I haven't seen Tonka. At least I guess I've seen Tonka like with on Kane's lives, but like I haven't seen Tonka here in a really, really long time. So I don't know. I hope I didn't do anything to upset them or something, because definitely miss Tonka. And Tonka's not the only one. I feel like I miss a lot of school friends anyway.
no measurement and no documentation of what the suspension height was at One Meadows, correct?
So we took the closest measurement in time to the One Meadows event, which is when it was at the Canton Police Department. That was the best information we had.
Well, that information isn't very good because the vehicle had to go from Canton to One Meadows. And when the vehicle drives, the way the suspension system works, it's automatic. When you go above 20 miles an hour, the suspension comes up. And when you turn off the vehicle, it goes down so you can get out easier. So it would be improper to assume that the suspension at One Meadows would be the same at another location.
That's the only, sorry,
Was there an objection?
No.
Go ahead and answer, please.
that's the extent of the information we had. We had it when it was at the Canton Police Department.
That's-
We matched that height.
Sorry, sir. I understand.
But actually, you brought up a good point. It's going so slow when it's backing up that it wouldn't raise up. So the static position when it's backing up would be the static position.
But it wouldn't be going in back up from the Canton Police Department to One Meadows. It wouldn't be going back up when it's going in other locations, sir, right? It would be driving forward. It had to get from point A to point B.
Right, but as you pointed out, when you turn it off, it drops down, and then you turn it on, and then once you go above 20, as you indicated, it goes up. But when she's backing up, she never goes more than a couple miles an hour. So it's going to be at the same position as when you start, which is approximately the same position when it's off at the Canton Police Department a couple days later.
Do you know whether the suspension system locks when there is testing of the infotainment system?
Oh boy.
Whether the suspensions, I don't know.
Okay, let's go on to the next topic. You're aware of the vehicle control, excuse me, Your Honor.
Is there some more issue?
You don't know what the
I know what
suspension
that's about.
ride height at 34 Fairview was on January 29th of 2022, do you?
Correct.
So therefore, if you don't know what the suspension height was, because of course you weren't there on January 29, 2022, therefore there's no measuring stick, as you say, you assert that you would have accounted for it in your methodology. So you don't have the suspension height for that key day, do you, sir?
I only have it 2 days later.
All right. So when you talk about key measurements, such as the spoiler on the top of the Lexus and the inches that are important as to whether things such as, is there a contact with the front eye, you don't have some data that would be relevant to that calculation, to some data being the suspension height of the Lexus at that time, do you?
So we have some data. We have photos of the vehicle 2 days later. We don't know the exact height outside because, as you alluded to, we don't have a measurement on January 29th of it, but we do have it 2 days later. That's the source of the measurement.
You don't have the suspension height or the setting of the suspension of the Lexus that existed on January 29th, 2022, do you?
Correct.
Now let's go on to another topic.
Oh, boy.
Within the 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022, I'm not going to go over them, but you asserted various measurements, height, width, with regard to the Lexus, correct? It wasn't just for the spoiler at the top, correct?
Correct.
And for all those other measurements that you talked about, you did not have the suspension height and the suspension setting of the hydraulic system of the Lexus on January 29th, 2022, did you?
So the hydraulic's only going to affect the vertical dimensions. It doesn't change anything left to right. And it doesn't change anything down the side of the car.
Understood. But for the measurements that are affected by vertical, you didn't have the suspension height of the Lexus system on January 29th, 2022.
Again, I only know what it is 2 days later.
So now let's go on to vehicle control history. Sir, you understand what I mean by vehicle control history?
You
Of
do? This is text stream information?
Are you aware of what is called the Bosch crash data retrieval system in Lexus vehicles?
Of course, we showed it on my slide.
Oh, I think I heard a little bit of this yesterday. Oh man. Oh, this part. There's some I don't remember at this point what it was, but I just remember thinking there was so much insanity here.
Slides.
And the
So as soon as they said Bosch, I was like, oh no.
Bosch crash data retrieval system in Lexus vehicles is sometimes referred to as the black box.
No, you're mixing up two things. So
There it is again. See right there. All right, now you know. Okay, now it's going to go off the rails. This whole thing. He loves saying this. You're mixing up two things. Okay.
Bosch is like the
It's
tools.
a question, sir.
So can you answer that with a yes or no?
Is the Bosch crash data
For
retrieval?
some reason, finally, Judge Bev does hold him to answering some of this, which is, I don't know why. I don't know. It's a good thing. Well, why now? I don't know.
System, the black box on Lexus vehicles. I just wanted to repeat it. So
I didn't hear the objection. You objecting?
I'd like him to be able to finish his answers.
So the question was just asked. Can you answer that question?
No, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, next question, Mr. Mason.
I'm going to ask the question, sir. The Bosch crash data retrieval system in Lexus vehicles, you're familiar with that? Are you familiar with it?
There is no such thing in the Lexus.
A Lexus does not have a Bosch crash data retrieval system?
No.
Have you read the report of Trooper Paul,
Yes.
the May 2023? Does that report not use the exact words Bosch? Let me ask this. Do you recall?
Sustained. The objection sustained.
Let's go to the VCH system in Lexuses. Is the VCH system intended by Lexus as a diagnostic tool for their technicians, Lexus technicians, to assist in vehicle repair and maintenance? Is that what that is created for?
That's their stated purpose.
Right. And is a synonym for VCH TechStream? Is
Sort of. TechStream, similar, like Bosch is the hardware and software to access the black box data. TechStream is the software to access, for example, the pre-collision system, the PCS system, and the VCH, which is the vehicle control history. So TechStream which does a lot of other stuff, but does access that information.
You just mentioned Bosch, didn't you, sir?
So Bosch is not in the Lexus. You use Bosch stuff sold by Bosch software and hardware, and you walk up to Lexus with all the Bosch stuff and plug it in and download the event data recorder, the EDR, the black box. That was my problem. There is no
Understood.
Bosch stuff in the Lexus.
I understand, sir. That was going to be the question that I was trying to get to, but you've explained it, so I don't have to answer the question. Let's go to the VCH database that you say the stated purpose is to assist technicians at Lexus in vehicle repair and maintenance.
So I didn't say that was a stated purpose. I'm saying that's what Lexus or Toyota says is a stated purpose. It's being used in litigation all the time. All I know is that's what Lexus and Toyota says. But again, it came about right when we started seeing all the sudden accelerations in the Toyota vehicles.
So my question is,
That's the one.
is the VCH
That's
database
the thing, right? I want to know more about that.
specific to Toyota and Lexus vehicles?
So it's not a database, it's software.
Is the software specific to Lexus and Toyota? The VCH?
Those particular acronyms are, yes.
I want to move to another topic, and we are almost finished. We have just two more topics, sir. How common were VCH events when Miss Reed owned the Lexus?
In 2022,
Do you know the ownership period of Miss Reed with respect to the Lexus? Do you know how long she owned it?
I have that documentation. I don't know off the top of my head.
Do you have an approximate?
No, I mean, it was a 2021 vehicle. Our accident's January 29, 2022. But I did get that information.
Do you know how many VCH events were associated with the Lexus of Miss Reed?
I did not count them, no. I have them all.
Do you
I was
have-
only focused on the ones around our time period.
Exactly. But do you have the number of events? Do you know how many there were?
I could get it for you.
How long would it take, sir?
3 minutes?
Why don't we come back to it?
Okay.
And we'll see if it's.
How about I start this so that we don't have to wait for it to boot up? And then when we come back to it, it's ready to go. Okay.
And this is what I was referencing earlier about this thing with this computer. He's like, look, I have a solution. I'll just get to leave my computer on all the time. No. Sucks that Mr. Alessi has to choose to just like abandon certain lines of questioning because of the time constraints placed on him by Judge Bev, to where the only other alternative would be allowing this witness to have all of these materials out, which is equally as bad. It's like, no matter what, Karen's rights are being violated no matter what. And it's just shitty.
That's all you're looking at, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. And then pick your head up, please, so I can finish these two
Please,
topics.
go ahead.
So
No, stop looking at it.
how often were VCH events recorded on the Lexus before January 29th of 2022?
Man, I have to pull this data up.
Fair
to
enough. Fair enough.
answer that
I
question.
assume that's going to be in what you're also pulling up.
That's the goal here.
Would the number be about 15? Does that sound right to you?
Let's see, 1, 2.
He's trying to speed it up because Judge Beth is bad. Oh my God. Can you imagine being Mr. Alessi?
There's 18.
18. So there were 8, your records show that there were 18 VCH events recorded on Miss Reed's license, correct?
Before the subject one.
Right. Did you conclude that any of those events, other than the 1162-2, were a collision?
No.
Now let's go to reverse recorded events. Can you tell how many of those 18 events were reverse recorded events? And you know what I mean by reverse recorded events?
Yes.
The vehicle going in reverse?
Right.
How many of those events were the vehicle going in reverse?
And this is before.
4. Other than
He asked
No,
you,
no,
is this
before.
before?
yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, I would have to pull up the PCS file.
Oh God.
Can you start that and I can continue on with the questioning?
I got to. So the PCS file is I have a second laptop. That
Here's
has
what I'm going
texturing.
to do. That's not important for me to keep going and get.
A second laptop. God. What? I'm sorry. I honestly don't even really believe that at this point because what?
through it. So let's just stay on the events, okay?
Crazy. So he's just going to abandon that line of questioning. You know?
Only one of all of those events, those 18, are you concluding that there was a collision associated with them, correct? Just one.
All those 18 are before. The collision is number 19.
No, I'm saying, I understand what you're saying, but for all the other events that are recorded, you're not, other than the January 29, 1162-2, you're not concluding that any of those were collisions, correct?
I didn't look at them. They were so far mileage away from everything.
But you're not concluding, even though they were so far away and you didn't look at them, you don't conclude from the information you have that any of them were a collision, correct?
Yes.
Sustained.
Let's go to 5:07 a.m. on January 29, 2022 at One Meadows, the home of Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay.
There was a collision between Ms. Reed's 6,000-pound Lexus and Mr. O'Keefe's approximately 4,500 Chevy Traverse. That's undisputed, correct? They collided, they made contact.
They touched.
Right. But the actual collision at One Meadows did not register the recording of an event on the Lexus VCH system, did it?
Oh my
Correct. Too
God.
minor.
So
Sorry, Heather. That's actually in my rabbit's hat, my Mary Poppins bag. Oh God. Oh God. Oh Lord, that's exactly that. Like, it's so funny because I was literally thinking when the whole thing about the second computer, I was like, that reminds me of something, but what is it? I couldn't put my finger on it. And that's what it is. It's the Mary Poppins. That's what it is. I haven't seen that since I was like really little. I probably haven't even seen it that many times. I would never have thought of that, but without you suggesting it, but that's exactly what I was looking for. It's Mary Poppins. He's Mary fucking Poppins. Does he use his wind wings to fly? Because didn't she used to like fly everywhere or something? Anyway.
however, you want this jury, sir, to conclude that the glancing blow that you contend occurred at 34 Fairview Road by the same 6,000-pound Lexus in contact with a mere 216-pound man did register an event on the Lexus, correct?
No, the impact didn't register the event. As I pointed
Yeah, I don't know why he's asking this question. I don't know if he just got confused or what, because it's been clear the entire time. In fact, I think even in the first trial, it was clear that the actual collision, quote unquote, didn't register as an event, which, I mean, you can take that for what you know what I mean? Like, it's like neither of the collisions registered. Assuming there was a collision with John O'Keefe, right? If you're the Commonwealth. But in other words, apparently it doesn't register collisions. It just measures backing up. I mean, which doesn't really make sense, right? Like, what's the point if it's not registering collisions? But anyway, let's see what else he says.
out, the trigger. The trigger was from when the accelerator pedal went to 30%.
Yeah, there it is.
The tech stream does not register crashes at all. It registers excessive acceleration, excessive steering, excessive braking, things like that, things that would be part of the maintenance system. So the tech stream will never register an event, even if you hit a wall at 100 miles an hour necessarily. It'll cause fault codes and things like that. But
there it is. You could hit a wall at 100 miles an hour and the collision's not going to register. Like, what? Okay, great. What's the point?
that's not what it does. The trigger here was transitioning into reverse and then gunning the accelerator pedal in reverse. And so when it went from 30 up to 74% throttle, once it went over 30 in that transition, that's what triggered the text stream. It had nothing to do with, and that's why I'm telling you, I don't know when in that event the impact occurred, because the text stream doesn't tell you that.
Thank you. That
You're
is
welcome.
Exactly my point. The text stream information doesn't tell you when a collision occurs, does it?
So that's how he actually manages to salvage it, because I don't know if he just got confused and he asked the question, he got something mixed up or what, but he did a really good job of recovering by saying that's exactly my point. And you could see Jud Welcher actually looked kind of confused for a second, and I think that was legitimate because it was. I don't think Mr. Alessi meant to ask that question, but he does recover well by saying that was exactly my point, and that it doesn't tell you when it registers. So he did a good job of recovering there.
That's all the questions I have at this time, Your Honor.
All right, why don't we take our morning recess, Charles?
And here comes
The redirect, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brandon.
You were asking
Actually,
questions.
it's morning, but yes.
You were asking questions about the ring video from Melrose, which was John O'Keefe's home, and you were asked whether you're aware if the cameras had changed over time.
Correct.
The fact that the camera was replaced, does that any way affect your opinion to a reasonable degree of engineering certainty about your conclusions relative to that touching between the cars?
Absolutely not. It would have shown up as increased error when we overlaid the point clouds onto the photos or the point clouds onto the video. If it was an error, it would have showed an error.
Do you have any concern whatsoever that any of the information from the scan is in any way tainted, compromised, or inadequate?
That would be very hard to do. You literally press a button and stand there and watch it, and the laser does its thing. So I have absolutely no reason to disbelieve it. Additionally, again, if it was messed up, once you laid it over on top of the photograph, it would show the difference. So no, the data's fine.
Is there any evidence whatsoever that you've seen that any parts of your presentation were photoshopped?
No.
You were asked questions about the suspension of the motor vehicle of the defendant's Lexus. Do you have any information that the suspension at any point was changed?
No.
Yesterday, you were asked a number of questions about formulas. You took out your calculator and you were asked about different variables. Were those variables hypotheticals or were they related to this specific case?
So they seemed hypothetical. Again, you have to be careful when you're talking about failure forces on biomechanical things. For example, if you impact the hand with a, say, 1-inch narrow metal bar, that's a lot different than if you have a broad, say, plastic.
Hold on, I'm gonna put back. Twiz makes a great point. Here's the thing: every time Breenan's is reasonable degree, or tries to apply anything regarding being reasonable, it is a bit of a mind fuck, isn't it? Because literally, there's nothing reasonable about anything in this case, especially as it pertains to the Commonwealth.
Related to this specific case?
So they seemed hypothetical. Again, you have to be careful when you're talking about failure forces on biomechanical things. For example, if you impact the hand with a, say, 1-inch narrow metal bar, that's a.
So is he trying to find new ways to injure himself again? Yesterday we had the pencil with the hand. Now we have a metal bar with a hand. Is he trying to is this I don't know, is he trying to tempt people with an opportunity to hit him with shit or run him over with a car? Because I think there's people who might take him up on that.
A lot different than if you have a broad, say, plastic taillight or rear body panel. So when you have distributed loads, you can take much more. I told you guys about sitting on the bed, how much you sink in. That's an example of spreading your load out. When you spread the load out, you don't.
Oh my God. And even with a demonstration. Wow.
I told you guys about sitting on the bed, how much you sink in. That's an example of spreading your load out. When you spread the load out, you don't sink in as much. So same thing with, forces on your body. If you take this pencil, I don't have to press very hard for it to pull in. But if I spread
now we're back to the pencil.
it out, I have to press much harder. So you have to look at the distribution of the load when you're talking about the failure. So when you look at the failure loads, it depends on what you're doing it with. If I hit you with a 5-pound 2x4 or a 5-pound pillow, they're both 5 pounds, but you'd much rather get hit.
You guys, I don't think they make a 5-pound pillow. I don't think they make a 5-pound pillow. Just saying.
By the pillow than the 2x4.
When you were asked questions about communications, when you would have communications with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, did you ever use encrypted apps to secretly hide your communications? Apps like Signal?
No, I don't have any of those.
Oh,
So
wow.
the form of the question, ask it differently.
When you were communicating,
Form of the question? Are you fucking kidding me? What? Wow.
So when you look at the failure loads, it depends on what you're doing it with. If I hit you with a 5-pound 2x4 or a 5-pound pillow, they're both 5 pounds, but you'd much rather get hit by the pillow than the 2x4.
When you were asked questions about communications, when you would have communications with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, did you ever use encrypted apps to secretly hide your communications? Apps like Signal?
No, I don't have any of those.
So the form of the question, ask it differently.
When you were communicating with members of the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, did you ever use encrypted apps like Signal to communicate?
Objection, so, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it.
No, I mean, I don't even know what that is.
Would you ever use an encrypted app so those communications couldn't be tracked?
No.
Would you ever have any reason as a professional for doing that?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You were asked about confirmation bias. You remember those questions?
I do.
Could I have slide 33 of your PowerPoint, please?
I'm sorry.
Slide 33.
Oh, you might be getting to one of the parts I was talking about where there's like a big.
Give me a second.
It's hard because there's so many. Oh no! Yeah, this part is really long.
33.
You could zoom that in, please.
This is really dumb. This
A
is
little larger so we can see it.
this to me. I did hear some of this. This to me is like really juvenile and immature, and it just I don't even know. It's a different. I've never seen an attorney take this strategy ever in trial.
I cannot do it with one monitor.
You can't do it any closer than that?
Not since I took down. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Which part do you want me to zoom in?
Ms. Gilman can zoom in for you.
Sorry? Which part?
Ms. Gilman's going to do it for you.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
If you could zoom in, please. Okay. On shift position signal, going forward, then neutral and reverse. Does that data suffer from confirmation bias?
No, that's strictly electronic data.
When we look over at the vehicle speed, can we go to the left a little bit? Down. Vehicle speed ending at 2361 miles per hour. Does that suffer from confirmation bias?
No, again, these are direct readings from the vehicle. Again, that speed on this here, you have to correct for the slippage, which I do later on the slide. That is a direct reading from what the speedometer is seeing.
Like these questions are. This just really. It doesn't even. It doesn't even deserve to be. I'm just going to ignore it. It's Chris.
Acceleration at the end of that 10-second window, 74%. Does that suffer from confirmation bias?
No, that's a direct reading of a sensor. That's objective information.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Wow, so stupid.
Anything, Mr.
Thank you,
Alessi?
Your Honor.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Welcher, you were just asked questions about slide 33, which is a slide about text stream data. You acknowledged that text stream data, what you've called a trigger, that was on that slide, does not tell you if a collision even occurred, correct?
Correct.
With regard to the topic of confirmation bias that you were just asked about in slide 33, am I correct that all of the questions that Attorney Brennan just asked you were about data on that slide, correct?
Yeah.
All that's on that slide is data, correct?
How do you ask me more questions than just this slide?
Oh
But
my
were the questions
god,
just about
dude!
data?
On this slide, it was just about data.
Correct. But confirmation bias is really aimed at opinions and conclusions and alternative hypotheses. Isn't that what confirmation bias gets at?
So
Come on.
generally, yes. Again, I started this case
I-
with
it was
the
just a question.
hypothesis.
This is the part I was waiting for. Listen to what he says. Remember, this is what I pointed this out earlier, where he's like, I started by assuming that, my hypothesis was that the collision happened at this place on the back of the Lexus, right? Versus this other place on the back. Now listen to this.
So generally, yes. Again, I started this case
It
with
was
the
just a question.
hypothesis,
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
with the hypothesis that the Lexus didn't contact Mr.
Crazy.
O'Keefe. And so I start what's called the null hypothesis, that this didn't happen. And then I
He
look
literally has never said that. He's only said the opposite this entire time. Whatever.
at evidence to either include or
Oh
exclude
my
the null
God.
hypothesis. So theoretically, my confirmational bias starts with a bias that it didn't happen.
Can you point to
Wow.
one document that shows that you analyzed whether there was no contact between Alexis and Mr. O'Keefe? Can you point to one document? Was there one document on your slide presentation that analyzed the null hypothesis as you call it, there being no contact at all? Was there any slides in your direct testimony?
So remember what I said, we start with hypothesis, we get more data, we whittle down our hypothesis to the final answer. I mean, I had 130 slides. I suspect I bored some of these people to death already. So I didn't include everything. There's
Yeah, probably.
thousands of photographs in here. There was a bunch of testing I did with the Lexus about backing, pedestrian detection that, removed certain hypotheses. So if I was able to eliminate a hypothesis, I didn't present it here.
Sir, my question is not about you.
All the slides show that, to answer your question.
Sir, My question is there any slide that says alternative hypothesis to, whatever the label is, whatever the term, that says no contact between the Lexus vehicle and Mr. O'Keefe? Is there any document that you presented to the jury that shows that?
Any document where those words are written on it?
Correct.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point, Heather.
And to work through hypotheses, different ones, in confirmation, and to see whether there's
That's a
confirmation.
good point, because you know what? It's so funny. It's almost like when you have so many double negatives that you end up proving the thing you didn't need to prove, type of thing, right? That's a great point. That would make sense because everything is also backwards in this case anyway. That seems like that's the answer. Yep.
Confirmation bias. Have you heard of scientists refer that as showing your math, so to speak, in working through hypotheses,
Yeah.
documenting each hypothesis and how and why you rejected them? Have you heard of that term in the scientific world, show your math with confirmation biases and alternative hypotheses? Just a question. Have you heard the idiom, the phrase, show your math,
Your question is, have I ever heard show your math, period?
associated with the application of various hypotheses to avoid confirmation bias? Have you heard of that term used in that conjunction?
Not really in that
Okay.
context. It's probably, I understand where you're going with it.
Oh,
No,
for
sir.
fuck's
You're
sake,
welcome.
dude.
No further question.
Thank God.
Dr. Welcher, these are all set.
Oh my God, thank you. Give me a minute to pack up and I will be out of here.
I'm so glad he's done. I don't know that. What
Oh yeah, I'm plugged in, yes, thank you.
happens next?
Ms. Brennan?
Oh, right, the interview clip. Okay. And then they rest. Okay. Let's see here. Trying to remember. I don't know if they do anything else. And I have seen this interview clip. Okay, this is interesting. All right.
Commonwealth moves to introduce and play clip 26.
Yeah.
So I thought, could I have run him over? Did he try to get me as I was leaving and I didn't know it? I mean, I've always got the music blasting. It's snowing. I got the wipers going, the heater blasting. Did he come and hit the back of my car and I hit him in the knee and he's drunk and passed out and asphyxiated or something? And then when I hired David Yannetti, I asked him those questions the night of January 29th. Like, David, what if, I don't know, what if I ran his foot over or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out or went to care for himself and he threw up or passed out, and David said, yeah, then you have some element of culpability.
I mean, I don't know how that got let in. I mean, her statements are there. Okay, the Commonwealth is allowed to use her statements. She's taught the thing that matters there, in my opinion, and the reason I think the Commonwealth played this was the last part, which is where it's what Mr. Yannetti said, according to Karen in that clip, that she would have some sort of culpability. So essentially, that's like trying to get in a statement from Mr. Yannetti being offered for the truth of the matter asserted and also calls for a legal conclusion. So on top of those issues, it's attorney-client privilege. I mean, I know she said it, but like literally all the things that are the worst things. Like, and you know what's so funny is we heard this clip in one of the hearings, but that last part was not on there. That was not on there. That is crazy. That's like what Breenan's goal is. I mean, what Breenan's goal is like, look, even Karen's own attorney says she could have some culpability. Now, it's craziness. You know, it's hearsay. It calls for legal conclusion. I mean, it's everything is wrong. It's like the reason it's let in is because of the perception that she's guilty, which is exactly why it shouldn't be let in, but that's exactly why it is let in this case, right? So it's all back in.
So the 207.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth rests.
And I honestly think, like I said, his entire case and I think he understands this. He's really banking on her own words convicting her. And I think of all of them, it's that I think literally, if you had to say like what is probably the best evidence, quote unquote, that the Commonwealth has for their case, not that it's admissible, not that it means anything or should count at all, but if you're the Commonwealth, like, and you're assessing, like, I think that one, honestly, that last statement, which again is really inadmissible, but where Mr. Unetti says that bit about her potentially having some culpability if there was an accident, that to me is like 99.9% of any amount of case that they have. And the other, like, what, 0.0001% is like, I couldn't even tell you what, honestly, maybe like, I don't even know, like that right there. If anybody thinks she's guilty, I wouldn't be surprised if anyone thinks that, you know, on the jury or whatever. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like that clip is what did it. Assuming that, I mean, I don't know, it's hard to say with these jurors, but in my opinion, that's their strongest evidence, even though it shouldn't have come in. That's my point.
Okay.
Which is really like, that's like cheating, right? Like, he shouldn't, the Commonwealth rests. It's like, here, we're going to cheat. We're going to play this interview clip that includes this statement that shouldn't be let in. It's completely admissible. And it's for all of the reasons. It's prejudicial in every way. And we're going to know that it'll be let in because we have this judge. And like, if we get a conviction, this is why. It's disgusting.
Does counsel want to see me?
We do, Your Honor.
Okay, so should we send the jury out or should?
Probably, yes.
So jurors, so everybody can sit. So jurors, the Commonwealth rests. That means that the Commonwealth's case has been presented to you for your consideration. So I need to meet with the lawyers for a few minutes. So I'm going to send you back out. I can tell you that it now appears that we're at least on schedule, if not a little ahead of schedule. So we'll send you back out for a short recess.
Rise to the jurors.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Can counsel come to sidebar, please?
Okay. Do they do anything? Okay, here we go. They do anything? Nope.
So
Okay.
we don't want to waste anybody's time. I know we've spent a lot of time at sidebar and we've had times that we've kept you in the deliberation room because we've been trying to sort through everything, trying to make this trial as efficient as possible, but also honoring and respecting all the hard work of the lawyers that's gone into preparing this trial. So sometimes I do understand that it's frustrating for you. But today we were able to spend some time this morning. I know we kept you in there almost half an hour and we've just spent some time now. So I can tell you that we are ahead of schedule right now. I still need to talk to the lawyers about something.
I mean, it's disgusting because she keeps saying that, but then you guys know, I feel like a broken record. It's just disgusting.
Tomorrow morning. So we're going to send you home now and have you come back tomorrow morning at 9:30 because today I know we kept you until 9:30 and it doesn't make any sense where I already know I need to talk to the lawyers tomorrow morning to have you here for a 9 o'clock start. So tomorrow will be a full day and we'll have you here ready to start at 9:30. Okay, so those same cautions, please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about the case, please disregard it and let us know. And also please continue to be careful with your social media use. So we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Rise to the jury.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Great.
That's it. And there's the only fan. Okay, so here's the plan. So tomorrow we will do today's testimony, so day 24. And then on Sunday, we're going to get all caught up on Idaho and including Twiz's big interview. So there's a ton of new court documents, which I've been keeping an eye out on. Of course, I've got court docs. And I've got some other stuff that I wanted to do as well, but it'll mostly be catching up on the court documents and watching Twiz's big interview. So yes, and if I have time, we might try to throw in another live stream on Sunday, but we'll have to see because I've got to waiting to hear back from some of these students of mine. But anywho, so yes, but it will be really exciting. The change that the jury is in store for, they're probably like I don't even know what hit me. You know what I mean? When they start with the defense's case in chief, because it's like, what? Like, really interesting. I have a lot of thoughts of things that I think are going on here. And of course, we start out with an expert witness, which again is really unusual. And I believe, because we looked him up, and I believe he's from North Carolina. I think he lives in North Carolina. I don't know if he says that or not in the testimony, because I haven't heard all of his background and whatnot, but I did hear some of his testimony, as I said earlier, but I didn't hear the whole, education, training, experience business. So anywho, regardless, the defense only brings in the highest caliber of expert that you can find. So, I can, Heather. Let's see, where is that? Here we go.
Yesterday, I was taking a walk around 5. I met a new friend. We went to Tallahassee food trucks.
Wow.
Last night, hung out with her for hours.
Yeah.
Wendy made another new friend. Are you fucking kidding me? Why?
She also Googled. There was a shooting, do you know?
I know.
Both she and John.
Stop.
Why would they
I'm going to die.
Why would that just come
I'm
up?
going. Sorry, Heather. Heather says, "I met a new friend on a whole hawk. Bitch, how old are you?"
You also told him that you thought you heard a wildcat, but maybe it was a person or something like that as well?
No, that's not what I said.
What did you say then?
I said when I went outside that there's a house cat that's gone wild, and he hangs around. He goes from hanging around the shop, goes from hanging around the house, different times. You might, and there'll be times you don't see him. And he had been around the house. And when I went outside, I believe that cat was over there.
The way that I love that wildcat is just a lot. It's a lot of love for the wildcat.
Is there any way that you would think
somebody tried to kill my ex-husband? They should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. My friend Elizabeth is a mortician. She's the prettiest mortician I've ever met.
You guys, Andy's friend, the fucking mortician. What is happening?
It's very big.
I love it. Oh my God. It's every time, right? Every time, Heather. Every time. It's so good. But there's what we're missing one in the bunch. I think you know where this is going.
I ate a lunch. Like, I had a whole delicious lunch.
The lunch that will live in infamy. Literally, it'll just live in infamy.
Your Honor, I can't do this in 2 minutes.
Well said. Well said, Mr. Alessi.
Hard as a rock, freeze-thaw effects on penetrometer resistance. His head's as hard as a rock.
I realized I said Mr. Alessi. Because I was hovering over this next clip. I meant to say Mr. Unetti. Well said, Mr. Unetti, but also well said, Mr. Alessi. Both of you guys, well said.
Mr. Brennan said, what if I called a Massachusetts state police officer to say that this was the best investigation ever? I have 2 words. Do it.
Freaking Glenn. Oh my God, it's so good. Okay, guys, that'll be it for now, but we'll have a much longer stream tomorrow. It'll be, I have a day where I have only 1 or 2, depending on if you count YouTube jobs. So we'll be able to do a little bit more. But yeah, we'll watch all of day 24 and catch up on some of the new court docs. I don't know what else will be coming out yet. I've got like a couple little ones, but I know there's been more things that have been filed. They haven't been posted yet that I saw. But anywho, and also I do have some really great stories for you guys from the law firm this week that you guys will love. So, but yeah, but that'll be it for this one, guys. Love you guys. Thanks so much for being squirrels, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow. But for now, squirrel out.